The story kicks off with our main guy showing up in some strange otherworldly spot, greeted by this supreme being with a calm but commanding voice. She tells him her name is Lady Nolan, and that he's been pulled into Midgard through something called the Otherworlder's summoning spell. Her tone shifts as she apologizes, saying he wasn't supposed to be here. This whole thing was meant for someone else, but he got caught in it by accident. Our guy is confused and asks how this even happened. Nolan breaks it down, saying the summoning system randomly pulls people from countless worlds. Even though he wasn't on the list of targets, the system somehow snatched him. Then she explains that the spell is dangerous because the laws of Earth and Midgard are completely different. Using it risks tearing this world apart. That's why it's forbidden, but some reckless nation still went ahead and cast it. Nolan stepped in when she noticed it being used, trying to stop it, but she couldn't fully block it. For now, she's brought him here to keep him safe. He asks if the other people summoned are here too. Nolan shakes her head, saying they were sent to the Holy Sidonia Empire, the place where the spell was cast, because they were the proper targets. Realizing this was a mistake, he pleads with her to send him back home. Nolan sighs and admits she can't. She was so angry at the nation that used the spell that she made sure they couldn't use it again. She starts explaining, but her words get too technical for him to follow. Feeling low, trying to figure out what went down, Nolan looks him in the eye and says he can't go back, because his old world is out of reach, and worse, he doesn't even have a body anymore. That's when he notices for the first time he's nothing but a glowing soul, shaped like a cue ball. He shook, asking her how this happened. Nolan explains that because he wasn't a target, he got hit by the spell's blowback, and it destroyed his physical form. Anger and fear creep into his voice as he tells her that an apology isn't fixing anything. He demands to know what's next for him. Nolan's expression softens as she gently tells him to let go of his old life and start fresh in Midgard. He felt unsure, wondering how it all went down, when he asks if she can send him to the Sidonia Empire like the others, but Nolan nods, saying she can make it happen if that's what he wants. Her words sink in as he tries to process the weight of everything that's happened. The Sidonia Empire isn't exactly the best place, and Nolan makes it clear his situation there would be rough since he wasn't supposed to be summoned. That news hits him hard, but Nolan quickly steps in, telling him to stay calm. She feels bad for what happened and promises to make things right for him. She reveals she's planning to send him to a different nation where he'll have her full backing. On top of that, she's giving him her blessing as a way to apologize. He doesn't get how this works, but Nolan casually explains it's not much different from the fantasy worlds he's probably seen in games and anime. She insists it'll be exciting, but he's feeling more stressed than thrilled. Ignoring his reaction, she tells him to try opening his status window and focuses on it, and sure enough, it pops up. He's surprised to see that he's 17 years old now, especially since he used to be a 40-year-old salaryman back on Earth. His status shows no job, and Nolan explains that jobs like salaryman don't exist here. She lists the kinds of jobs he can aim for. Combat roles like swordsman, mage, and knight, but also wild ones like professional cuddler and mattress tester. Then there are production jobs like herbalist, alchemist, blacksmith, and chicken trainer. He's not interested in fighting, so he asks for a production path. Nolan gives him a skill perfect for that, plus a few others to help him get started. She explains that as he uses his skills, he'll naturally unlock a proper job title over time. With everything set, she sends him to the continent of Asgard. When he lands by a peaceful pond, he notices his reflection and takes a moment to admire his new appearance. Digging through the items Nolan left him, he finds food, money, and a knife. Curious, he checks his status window again and realizes it could be risky if people learn about Nolan's blessing. He uses one of his skills to hide the blessing and some of his other abilities. Then he spots a long list of magic skills and decides to test a few of them. He skips fire magic for now, not wanting to risk setting the place on fire. Instead, he starts experimenting with earth magic, shaping the ground beneath his feet, then moves on to wind and water magic, testing each one with growing excitement. It's the start of a whole new journey, and he's ready to see where it takes him. Takumi watches his skills in action and thinks this world is exactly what a fantasy should feel like. Deciding to find a village, he begins exploring and notices some wood lying around. Then, using his appraisal skill, he identifies it as treant wood, a high-quality material obtained from a monster called a treant. This type of wood is highly valued for crafting staves, magical tools, and spear shafts. Excited by his find, then Takumi uses his blacksmithing skill to shape the wood into a spear. While working, he figures if the wood in this area is so valuable, the plants might be special too. He starts searching and soon realizes the area is packed with useful herbs. Gathering as much as he can, he quickly realizes his bag won't hold it all. So he stores everything in his item box, which has unlimited space. As he's finishing up, a girl runs toward him, screaming in fear, and hides behind him. He looks ahead and sees a massive rabbit charging toward them. Takumi grabs his spear, getting ready to fight. The girl shouts that the rabbit is carnivorous, making him even more tense. The rabbit lunges, but Takumi manages to kill it with a swift strike from his spear. He's stunned by his success, then receives a notification that he has gained a warrior job, even though he wasn't planning to fight. The girl thanks him for saving her and explains she's from a nearby place called Board Village. She says she got lost while gathering medicinal herbs. Takumi asks if she could guide him to her village, and she agrees without hesitation. Before they leave, she notices the rabbit and tells him it's delicious. Takumi stores the rabbit in his item box, explaining that while it can't store living creatures, it works perfectly fine for corpses. The girl is amazed by his skill and introduces herself as Molly. Takumi introduces himself in return. The scene shifts to the Holy Sidonia Empire, where 3 confused humans stand in a grand hall. They've been summoned to a strange new world and are trying to make sense of what's happening. A girl wearing a graduation gown steps forward, welcoming them and explaining they've been summoned to act as heroes to save the world. The group listens to her words, but none of them seem to fully grasp what's going on. Elizabeth starts off by introducing herself as the first empress of the Holy Sidonia Empire. She pulls back her hood to reveal a face that looks straight out of a Joker sketch. The vibe she gives off is unsettling to say the least. Out of nowhere, Akane, one of the summoned, gains a unique skill called Revelation gifted by Lady Nolan. With it, she gets a divine message telling her to trust her instincts, they'll lead her to the truth. Akane takes the advice seriously and decides she can't trust Elizabeth, sensing danger in everything about her. Meanwhile, back in the village, Molly's parents thank Takumi for saving their daughter. Her father Bunga introduces himself as a hunter and his wife as Martha. Takumi asks if he can stay in the village for a while. Bunga and Martha don't mind and tell him the village is rich in herbs, and there's even a nearby ore vein. Takumi smiles, excited by the opportunity. Then Bunga introduces Babin, the village blacksmith, who seems eager to help out. Grateful Takumi thanks them, but they mention there's no inn in the village. Instead, they offer to build him a home. Overjoyed, Takumi agrees. Then they show him a plot of land for his house, and Babin calls on the villagers to help with the construction. Takumi decides to help out, using his earth magic to level the ground. The villagers are amazed by how skilled he is with magic. However, the effort drains a lot of his mana, and Bunga suggests he rest while they handle the rest of the work. Later, the house is finished, and Takumi uses his carpentry and blacksmithing skills to make some basic furniture. Curious about his progress, Takumi checks his status window, wondering if he can switch his warrior job. Just then, a job change option appears. He selects alchemist and blacksmith as his primary jobs and dives into his new work. With Babin, Takumi mines silver, iron, and copper, as well as a rare magic iron ore imbued with mana. He plans to turn all of them into ingots, starting with the iron ore. Normally, smelting ore would require a furnace, but Takumi uses alchemy and earth magic to skip the furnace entirely. The process consumes a large chunk of his mana, but he's thrilled with the result as the ingot forms perfectly in his hands. Takumi pushes on with his work, determined to craft as much as he can using the iron and copper he's collected. One evening, Molly shows up to bring him dinner, but finds him collapsed on the ground. When he wakes up, he explains he overused his mana and passed out. Martha gives him a stern lecture, making it clear he needs to take better care of himself. Bunga hands him a healing potion, which helps him recover quickly. Even so, Martha and Molly decide to keep an eye on him, dropping by occasionally to check in. Takumi keeps using alchemy over the next several days to turn his ores into ingots. Along the way, he finds small amounts of lead, gold, titanium, tungsten, and tin. With these materials, he crafts utensils and tools, and his alchemist and blacksmith levels shoot up fast. Later, Takumi works alongside Babin, learning more about smithing and lending a hand with his fire magic. Together they make a knife, and Babin proudly says it's his best work yet. Takumi's blacksmith level hits 40, while his alchemist level is at 33. He's frustrated though since he wants to focus on alchemy. One day, Takumi asks Bunga for some potions so he can try making his own. Bunga agrees but says all he has are basic potions. Takumi doesn't mind and gets to work. As he crafts potions, he can't help but feel like a mad scientist, reminding him of experiments he did as a kid. But when he finishes, he notices the color of his potion is different from Bunga's, and he senses mana coming from it. He figures this might be because he used water magic to prepare the base, and it makes him curious about other potion recipes. Later, Takumi eats a random poisonous plant on purpose, using his heal spell to cure himself after getting sick. This helps him build resistance to poison and paralysis, while also leveling up his light magic skill. Though it's a rough process, it pays off, and he learns purification magic. While testing his new skills, a massive armored boar appears, towering over him at level 25. Takumi grabs his spear and knife ready for a fight. The boar charges, and without hesitation Takumi throws his knife, but it barely scratches the beast. He follows up with his spear, but it snaps on impact. Switching tactics, he casts rock ball and wind cutter spells, but they don't work either. For a moment he wonders what he's going to do. That's when he notices movement behind him, a poison spider. Panic sets in, but then he realizes the spider is already injured. The boar charges at Takumi while he's distracted. Bracing for the hit, he suddenly finds himself saved when the spider blinds the boar, causing it to miss its mark. Even with this help, Takumi has no way to defeat the beast and scrambles for a solution. He gets the idea to use his decomposition skill in alchemy to crush the boar's head. The move works, and he's shocked to gain both martial art and magic combat skills from it. Crafting magic just saved his life, and he can't believe it. Turning his attention to the spider, Takumi notices it's close to death. Grateful for its help, he thanks it and treats its injuries. As he prepares to leave, a notification pops up telling him he can tame the spider. Surprised by the idea, Takumi hesitates, but the spider's shiny eyes make it hard for him to walk away. He asks the spider if it wants to come with him. The spider agrees, and Takumi tames it, discovering he can now talk to it telepathically. He asks if it has a name, but it doesn't, so he decides to call it Maple, inspired by the maple leaf pattern on its back. The moment Maple accepts the name, it evolves into a killer spider, and even its severed leg grows back. Later, Takumi shows the villagers the massive armored boar he killed. Everyone is shocked he managed to take down such a beast on his own. Molly notices the big spider on his back, and the villagers grow uneasy, but Takumi reassures them. Maple is a tamed monster now, and there's nothing to worry about. Bunga's shocked because taming insect-type monsters is straight up impossible. Takumi shifts the focus, saying they should concentrate on preparing the boar for a feast. The villagers are surprised when Takumi offers to share the boar with everyone, but they quickly gather for a celebration. While they eat, Bunga gives Takumi the fangs and leftover hide from the boar, explaining that these items can be sold for good money in a big city. Takumi asks about the nearest big city, and Bunga tells him it's a place called Bolton. Meanwhile, Maple is playing with the village kids, and Babin comments on how much brighter the village feels since Takumi arrived. Bunga agrees, but adds that Takumi doesn't seem like someone who'll stay in a small village forever. Elsewhere, Nolan watches over Takumi and feels pleased that he's doing well. Another Supreme Being approaches her, asking what she's expecting from the boy. Nolan plays it off, claiming she has no specific plans, but the other being points out she's done more than just help him. She gave him a special body, her blessing, and even sent him a whole year into the past, before the Holy Sidonia Empire's summoning spell. Nolan insists her actions mean nothing, but the look on her face tells a different story. One morning, Takumi wakes up tied to his bed, already knowing Maple is behind it. Maple apologizes, but it's clear what's up. Takumi has been drowning himself in work, leaving her feeling forgotten. She needed his attention and found a way to get it. Takumi realizes he's been so caught up in work that he hasn't spent enough time with Maple. Feeling bad, he decides to take the day off to be with her. Maple is over the moon, finally getting the time she's been craving. While they're enjoying themselves, Martha walks in carrying lunch for Takumi. She pauses looking at the scene, her face full of questions. Takumi quickly explains the situation isn't what it seems. Martha listens but can't help noticing the silky threads Maple spun. They're exceptional, and Martha's mind is already racing with ideas. By the end of the day, Martha has created a shirt from the spider silk. The women in the village go wild when they see it. The fabric is smoother than anything they've ever touched. It turns out spider silk is a luxury item only the wealthy can afford. Takumi had no idea it was such a prized material. Martha asks Maple for more silk, and Maple agrees, though producing enough to meet demand will take time. Takumi feels a bit disappointed. He had been looking forward to spending more time with Maple, but he moves on. He still has things to handle. A month has passed since Takumi arrived in the village. He feels ready to head to the city to study alchemy further, but struggles with the idea of leaving after building such strong connections. Before leaving, he heads to the forge to meet Babin. Together, they finish crafting a chest plate that fits Takumi perfectly and a pair of steel toe boots. Babin mentions the boots will come in handy if Takumi ever needs to kick something, but Takumi brushes it off. His focus is alchemy, not fighting. While they're wrapping up, Bunga arrives happy to see Takumi's new gear. There's a hint of sadness in his voice as he admits he'll miss him. Bunga knows, however, that this move is necessary. If Takumi wants to expand his work, going to the city is the right decision. A trader from Bolton is scheduled to pass through the village in a couple of days, and Bunga has arranged for Takumi to travel with him. The villagers, though sad to see him leave, understand it's time. They encourage him to get ready for the next step in his journey. Takumi thanks everybody for all the help they've given him and starts heading back to pack up his stuff. On the way, he spots Martha lugging a bucket of meat and stops to ask what she's doing. Martha explains she's on her way to toss out the insides of a horned rabbit that Bunga caught. Apparently, the innards are the tastiest part, but they've got to be processed right to get rid of all the nasty diseases and parasites. Since the village doesn't have the tools to clean it properly, she's tossing it to keep folks safe. Takumi stops her and says she doesn't need to do that. He crouches down, uses his purification magic, and tells her the meat's safe to eat now. Martha's grateful, but she's also shocked. Seeing him use light magic blows her mind, since that's rare as hell in this world. She warns him to keep that magic on the down low when he leaves the village. If people find out he can do that, it's going to bring trouble his way. Takumi nods and promises to keep it under wraps. But while he's still here, he's determined to use everything he's got to make life better for everyone. He rolls up his sleeves and gets to work. Using earth magic, he builds a solid brick wall to protect the village. Then he adds a water pump and a couple of other upgrades to make life easier. By the time he's done, the place looks completely different. When the merchant Papek shows up, he almost doesn't recognize the village. Bunga comes out to greet Papek, and after they handle their trade business, Takumi walks over to join them. Papek's already heard plenty about Takumi from Bunga, so he introduces himself while the villagers make sure Takumi hasn't forgotten anything. Takumi tells them he's good, but there's one more thing he wants to do. He pulls a potion out of his bag and hands it to Bunga. Then he explains he's already dropped off about 100 bottles at Bunga's house. If there's ever an emergency, Bunga can use them to heal people. Papek is blown away when he sees the potion. He takes a closer look and realizes it's high-level stuff. But Takumi seems clueless about how impressive it is. As the villagers gather to say goodbye, Papek decides to wait until everyone's finished. Molly leans in to say goodbye to Maple, who's curled up asleep in Takumi's sack. Martha steps forward with a special outfit she and the other women made for Takumi out of Maple's silk. Takumi smiles as he thanks everyone again for their thoughtful gift. He's blown away by how kind they've been, even though he hasn't been around that long. After a heartfelt goodbye, he hops into the carriage. The villagers give him a big send-off, reminding him he'll always have a place in their village. As the carriage rolls toward Bolton, Papek glances at Takumi and mentions how much the villagers clearly love him. Even the others in the carriage pick up on it, saying it's obvious Takumi was more family to them than anything else. That kind of farewell hits Heath right in the emotions. The others start introducing themselves. The blonde is Heath, the redhead is Real, and the gloomy-looking guy is Bogger. They're part of a C-rank adventurer group called Lion Fang, currently working as Papek's bodyguards. This region's peaceful, so they don't have much to do. Real notices Takumi clutching his bag tight and asks what's inside. Takumi explains it's his pet killer spider Maple, who's knocked out for now. That stops everyone. A tamed killer spider, they can't believe it. Real asks to see it acting weird about the whole thing. Maple, clearly unimpressed, wakes up and headbutts him right in the face. Takumi freaks out and starts apologizing, but the others wave it off laughing. Real had it coming. Heath even jokes that Maple might be scared of humans, now though she's already cozying up to Bogger, so that doesn't seem true. While everyone's busy fussing over Maple, Papek calls Takumi to the front. He wants to talk about that potion Takumi's carrying. Papek asks if there are more in stock and says he'd like to buy some. Takumi doesn't mind selling to him, but before they can finish the conversation, one of the horses suddenly stops. They look ahead to see a horde of goblins surrounding the carriage ready to attack. It's bad news for most, but not for Lion Fang. These guys light up like it's the best thing that's happened all day. Heath tells Takumi and Papek to stay put. The three step out, ready to show what they can do. There are about 20 goblins spread out in the field, but they're not worried. Real pulls out his bow, picking them off from a distance. Heath and Bogger get up close, smashing through the rest with a mace and axe. It doesn't take long for them to handle all the goblins. Once they're done, they get busy dissecting them to collect the magic stones. Maple's been watching the whole time and seems to really vibe with Bogger. She can't stand Real and doesn't pay much attention to Heath. After wrapping up, they all hop back on the carriage and keep moving. The trip lasts another 3 days before they finally roll into Bolton. Once they hit the city, the Lion Fang crew heads straight to the Adventurers Guild to report their bodyguard mission as a success. Takumi tags along since he needs to register with the guild to stay in the city. He'd rather sign up with the Alchemist Guild, but Bolton doesn't have one, so becoming an adventurer is his only option for now. At the reception desk, Hans, the guild rep, explains that Takumi can use the Adventurer Guild card as his ID. All he has to do is complete one simple quest each month to keep it active. Takumi goes through the process and also registers Maple as his pet. Once that's squared away, Takumi heads to Papek's trading company to hammer out a deal for his potions. He's got around 103 potions in stock, and all of them are top-notch. Papek offers him 10 silver coins each for the healing and stamina potions, and 50 silver coins each for the mana potions. Takumi does some quick math in his head and realizes this deal will pull in over 7 million yen. He's stunned, thinking that's way too much money, but Papek laughs and tells him he could have earned even more if he already had a name in the industry. Since Takumi plans to set himself up as a producer in Bolton, Papek suggests getting a house with a workshop attached. That'd make his work easier. Takumi realizes he hasn't even thought about where he'll live yet. Papek steps in to help and calls for his assistant Thomas to show Takumi a property with a decent price. But when Takumi sees the place, it looks more like a mansion, and he's sure it's way out of his budget. Thomas reassures him the mansion is affordable, and even jokes that it's ghost-free, so there's nothing to stress about. Takumi spots the workshop connected to the house and starts thinking it might actually be perfect. It's big enough to handle his work, and he can afford it after the money he made selling potions to Papek. After mulling it over, he decides to go for it and tells Thomas the mansion is his. Thomas is pumped when Takumi says he'll take the house and promises to get the paperwork started right away. He tells Takumi he can move in as early as tomorrow. As they're walking through the streets, though, Takumi catches a nasty smell in the air that makes him stop. Thomas notices and explains it's coming from the sewers. Rich folks have magical purifiers to handle their waste, but the city's main sewers don't have anything like that. Magic purifiers are super rare since they're only found in ancient ruins and dungeons, making them too pricey for public use. Sometimes priests get hired to clean the sewers with purification magic, but most of the time, the sewers stay filthy and reek like this. The next day, Takumi and Maple move into their new place. First thing Takumi wants to do is tackle the sewer problem. He grabs some quartz and clay from Papek's company, then uses his magic to shape it. After that, he combines fire magic with space-time magic to bake it in no time. The process drains all his mana, so he has to down a couple of mana potions to keep going. But it's worth it. He finishes his creation, a modern toilet. Not long after, Takumi hears Papek yelling from the living room. He rushes over and finds Papek wrapped up head to toe in Maple's silk. Takumi turns to Maple and asks what she's doing. She says she thought Papek would find it fun. To be fair, the silk is super comfy and actually puts Papek to sleep, but that doesn't make it okay. Takumi apologizes on Maple's behalf, looking pretty embarrassed. Papek brushes it off, saying it's fine, though getting wrapped up out of nowhere freaked him out a bit. Then Papek asks if he can use Takumi's restroom real quick. A few moments later, Papek comes back out wide-eyed, asking what kind of high-tech miracle this thing is. Takumi steps in and explains it's a toilet hooked up to a magical purification device. It cleans itself after every use. Basically, when you do your business, it uses purification magic to break it all down into harmless inorganic materials that get flushed down the drain. Papek nods, saying the system makes sense, but points out that only someone with an aptitude for light magic could pull off something like this. That's when it hits Takumi he might have slipped up big time. Martha warned him about openly using light magic, so he quickly asks Papek to keep this whole thing under wraps. Papek gets why Takumi wants to keep his abilities under wraps, so he promises not to tell anyone. But he's got one condition: he absolutely needs some of those toilets. He asks Takumi if he can make 100 of them. Takumi hesitates. Making one toilet was already a grind, so cranking out 100 sounds impossible. Papek keeps pushing though, so Takumi finally agrees, but only if Papek can supply the raw materials. Papek's thrilled, but he knows it's unfair to expect Takumi to do all that work solo. Papek suggests Takumi make a slave contract to get some help. That idea hits Takumi hard. He's not down with slavery at all. But Papek explains that if Takumi wants to keep his abilities a secret, a slave might be his best bet. A slave is bound by contract and can't spill the beans about Takumi's light magic. Papek reminds him how big a deal having light magic is. It's seen as a blessing from the Supreme Being, and the Church of Divine Light would come after him for sure if they found out. They'd force him to work for them since they make a fortune monopolizing purification magic. Papek figures the church wouldn't be happy if common folks started getting access to cheap purification through Takumi's toilets. Luckily, Papek's got a plan to keep the church off Takumi's back for now. He tells Takumi not to stress about it, but insists on the importance of keeping his magic on the down low. He pushes the slave idea again, saying it's the safest way to go. Takumi's still not feeling it. He says he'll handle the work himself no matter how tough it gets. Just then, his guild card starts glowing. Takumi checks it and sees a message saying he needs to complete a verification quest to maintain his adventurer status. That's when he realizes he won't have the time to make all the toilets alone. Frustrated but out of options, he finally agrees to buy a slave. Papek takes him to the Mulan Trading Company, which he says is the most ethical place to buy slaves. Papek heads off to negotiate with the owner for a good deal, leaving Takumi to wander around. While walking through the garden, Takumi spots a stunning elf girl sitting on a terrace, but the moment she notices him, she snaps, telling him to get out. The scene cuts to Takumi sitting down with Mulan, the owner of the slave trading company. Papek steps in and introduces Takumi, mentioning that he's looking for a slave. He also explains that Takumi's not too thrilled about the whole slave contract thing, and Takumi adds that where he's from they don't even have slaves. Mulan understands his perspective and explains it to him in detail, telling him that the slave contract binds the slave to the owner, but here in the kingdom of Barkila, slaves have rights. She lays it out. Owners have to give their slaves the basics: food, clothing, and a place to stay. Neither side can cause life-threatening harm, and slaves aren't allowed to spill secrets about their owners. Takumi listens and thinks this setup isn't what he expected. Then Mulan starts explaining the types of contracts. She says people can end up as slaves in different ways. Some get into it because they're drowning in debt, so their contracts last until they pay it off. Others are criminals trying to reform and earn a living. Then you've got prisoners of war who sign up for a roof over their heads. But there's also the darker side, folks getting captured and forced into slavery illegally. Sadly, that's pretty common. Papek cuts in, saying Takumi might want a war slave since they can't get free unless their master allows it. Mulan's curious and asks why. Papek explains that Takumi's a producer with mad skills no one else can copy. Mulan turns to Takumi, wanting to hear it straight from him. Takumi says he's got his hands full as a producer. He's swamped with work, juggling quests from the Adventurers Guild, running errands and managing his daily grind. What he really needs is someone to run the mansion he's staying at and take care of all the chores. On top of that, he's got skills he needs to keep under wraps, and those skills might attract trouble. Plus, he's constantly venturing into dangerous spots to gather materials, so having someone to protect him and tag along would be a huge help. Hearing all this, Mulan realizes he's not looking for one slave, he needs two. She steps out for a moment and comes back with Maria. Mulan explains Maria's backstory. She was snatched by bandits when she was just a kid and has no family left. They've trained her in reading, writing, math, and housekeeping. She's well prepared for the kind of help Takumi needs. Mulan introduces Maria to Takumi, explaining that she'll need to manage his mansion. Takumi goes over the layout, mentioning how many rooms there are, and asks Maria if she thinks she can handle it on her own. Maria says she can manage, and Takumi's relieved to hear it. Maria notices he's acting a little off and asks if something's wrong. He admits he's surprised someone as cute as she hasn't already been taken. Maria gets flustered by the compliment, and Takumi quickly apologizes if it was inappropriate. She brushes it off, saying her skills are limited to general housekeeping. Takumi says that's exactly what he needs, but Maria seems stuck on the fact that housekeeping is all she can do. When he asks what she means, she shyly adds that she won't be sleeping with him. Takumi immediately clarifies that he has no interest in that and only wants her for housekeeping. She nods understanding, and Mulan steps in, saying they'll proceed with the contract. Mulan mentions she doesn't currently have any war slaves fit for combat, but Maria speaks up, revealing they do have Sophia. Mulan cuts her off, telling her not to interrupt when it's unnecessary, and sends her to pack her belongings. After Maria leaves, Takumi asks Mulan about Sophia. She explains Sophia is a war slave, but says there are problems with her, which makes Takumi curious. He asks if he can meet Sophia. Something about his intuition is telling him this is important, so he decides to trust his gut. Mulan agrees and takes him to meet her. Mulan explains Sophia's backstory. She was captured during the war between the Kingdom of Triaria and the Kingdom of Ugur 50 years ago. Takumi is stunned to hear this. She goes on to reveal that Ugur was a nation of elves. Sophia has yet to form a contract with anyone for various reasons. When Takumi asks what those reasons are, Mulan explains Sophia's left ear has been sliced off, and her right hand and left leg have limited movement. Though the impairments don't affect her daily life, they make her useless in combat. On top of that, her elemental and sprite magic have been sealed, and she's likely under a curse. These issues are major flaws for a combatant. Takumi asks if he can speak with Sophia alone. Mulan agrees and steps out, leaving him with Sophia. Takumi studies her closely. Sophia looks him in the eye and tells him she's not going to be of any use to him. Takumi checks her stats and is shocked to see how strong she actually is. Even with her injuries, which have reduced her stats by 100 points, her potential stands out. Sophia's curse has cut off her ability to use mana. Seeing her high stats, Takumi figures she could be a real asset if he can heal her and break the curse. Mulan comes back into the room and asks Takumi what he plans to do. Without hesitation, he says he's going to form a contract with Sophia. Sophia reminds him that she can't fight, but Takumi shrugs it off, saying he'll just have to fix her. Mulan raises an eyebrow, wondering if he can actually deal with the issues that have held her back for 50 years. Takumi confidently says he can, so Mulan agrees to let him take Sophia. Sophia still looks unsure. Takumi asks if she doesn't want him as her master. She replies that what she wants doesn't matter since she's a slave. Mulan steps in, finishing the paperwork for the contract. She casts the spell to bind the contract, and both Maria and Sophia pledge to serve Takumi. Takumi stays polite with them, but Sophia quickly reminds him they're just slaves and there's no need to act so formal. Mulan smiles, glad to see the girls have found a good master. Later, Takumi gets back to his mansion, and Maple jumps on him the second he opens the door. Maria and Sophia immediately go on high alert, ready to take down what they see as a killer spider. Takumi stops them, explaining that Maple is his pet, introduces Maple to them, and lets Maple know that Maria and Sophia will be living with them from now on. Takumi then shows the girls to their rooms, and they're stunned to find out they'll have their own separate spaces. They hesitate, saying they don't need that much, but Takumi insists, with so many empty rooms in the mansion, they might as well use them. He also tells them there's a bath they can use anytime they want. The girls ask if there's any soap, and Takumi admits he hasn't decided when he'll bathe yet, but they're free to use it. He's even installed a device to keep the water clean at all times. Later, the girls relax in the bath, and Maria tells Sophia she thought Mulan would never let her go, especially since she turned down every offer to buy her before, no matter how much money was on the table. Maria figures Mulan must have really trusted this new master. She even admits Takumi seems like a good person so far. Sophia, still unsure, says she noticed something strange about the contract Mulan drew up. Most of the details about their master were left blank. Sophia thinks that if Takumi's holding back info, there's probably a good reason. Maybe sharing it could cause problems or bring trouble his way. She's not sure what's going through his head. Later, when they head out of their rooms, they find that Takumi has already prepared dinner. Maria looked crushed, thought cooking was supposed to be her job. Takumi explained he just wanted to make things easier for her since it was her first day, and promised she could handle everything starting tomorrow. Maria asks if she can at least clean up after dinner, and he agrees. Sophia is surprised that Takumi is letting them eat at the same table as him. Takumi tells her he doesn't want them to feel separated from him just because they're serving him. He says it would make him happy if they ate together. After hesitating for a moment, they agree. The next day, Takumi picks up an order from Papek. Papek warns him to be careful with it, and Takumi nods before heading back. On his way, he notices a church and decides to step inside. Then he finds a statue of Lady Nolan. He offers a prayer thanking her for her blessings. Then he brings up something that's been on his mind. He's heard that the Holy Empire of Sidonia controls the religion here and wonders why she was speaking against Sidonia earlier. To his shock, Lady Nolan appears in front of him. Takumi can't believe what he's seeing. She explains that because he was praying to her, she pulled him up quickly to have a chat. Lady Nolan clears up his confusion, saying she has no connection to Sidonia or its Church of Divine Light. She explains there are two main religions in this world: the Church of Creation, which has always worshipped her, and the Church of Divine Light, which came later. The Church of Divine Light, built around a supreme being that doesn't actually exist, was aggressively spread by the Holy Empire of Sidonia. They used force to push their influence and opposed the Church of Creation. Lady Nolan says she refused to get involved, viewing it as petty human conflict. Takumi realizes that this hands-off approach allowed Sidonia to activate its summoning spell and pull someone like him into this world. Lady Nolan apologizes again for what happened, reminds him that she gave him her blessing and explains how it works. While some parts of her blessing will last forever, the part that helps him grow and connect with others will eventually fade as he grows stronger. She simplifies it, telling Takumi his beginner's tutorial is almost over, and warns him that his growth will soon hit some walls. She also mentions that he might run into people with bad intentions. Takumi realizes that most of the kind folks he's met so far were likely influenced by the blessing. He figures it's time to start depending on himself and leaves the church deep in thought. The story jumps forward a year, showing the king of Sidonia asking for updates on the heroes. He's told they're training with the knights. The king expresses hope that these heroes will become valuable assets, especially since summoning them wasn't easy. The minister adds that the heroes were hesitant to help at first, but thanks to Elizabeth's persuasion, they've become more willing to assist. The scene shifts to Akira and Yamato training with the knights. The knights mock them during practice, pointing out how clumsy they are. This takes Akira back to the time he lost a judo match to a freshman and became the target of ridicule. Determined, Akira pushes himself harder during sparring, earning some respect from the knights who start to like his grit. They call Akane over, encouraging her to join the training, but she's not interested in fighting and tries to leave. Elizabeth stops her, insisting that this isn't about violence, it's something they need to do to save the world. Akira steps into the conversation, striking a heroic pose and telling Akane not to worry since he'll protect her. Akane ignores him, focusing instead on her growing suspicion that Elizabeth is dangerous. The story shifts back to the present, where Takumi arrives at his house completely exhausted, falling face first at the door. His servants rush to help him and pick up his belongings. Sophia reaches for the bag Takumi just got from Papek, but he quickly snatches it and places it in his magic bag. She's caught off guard thinking he's hiding something, and Takumi heads straight to his workshop. Sophia follows quietly and watches him drop a knife into a strange liquid. She's shocked to see him intentionally injure his arm with it, only to heal himself right after. He repeats the process, muttering about how Maria messed something up earlier. Sophia completely misreads the situation when she overhears Takumi, and she rushes over, falling against him, demanding to know what he's planning to do to Maria. Takumi's confused, having no clue what she's talking about, but before he can respond, she faints. That's when he notices she's completely drained and her hand is injured too. Takumi immediately uses his healing magic on her hand, but it takes a crazy amount of mana, way more than usual. He figures it's got something to do with the curse she's under. After a struggle, he manages to heal her, and in the process his light magic levels up. Once she's stable, he carries her to her room and checks in with Maria, asking if this kind of thing happens a lot. Maria admits that Sophia has collapsed before, usually when she gets too excited or moves around too much, convinced it's all because of the curse. Takumi decides to take action, combines his Dispel spell with his advanced healing magic and works on regenerating Sophia's ear while continuing to treat her. After some effort, he successfully finishes the process. When Sophia wakes up, she's groggy and confused about where she is. Maria rushes over to check on her, asking if she's feeling okay. Sophia says she's fine and even notices that her body feels lighter than usual. But then she remembers what she was doing earlier, panicking and telling Maria to run because Takumi isn't who she thinks he is. Maria shuts that down, saying Takumi is even better than she imagined. Sophia's baffled until Maria hands her a mirror. When Sophia looks, she's stunned, her ear is back to normal. and she can feel her magic flowing again. Then Maria explains that Takumi cured her with his mind-blowing magic. Later, Sophia confronts Takumi, asking how he managed to pull it off. He tells her about his unorthodox method of cutting and healing himself to level up his light magic. Also, he could heal her properly. She's curious about what he meant when he said Maria messed up, so he explains it was about her throwing away some medicinal herbs he'd collected, thinking they were trash. Finally, Sophia asks why he went to such dangerous lengths for her. Takumi simply says he was keeping his promise. Overwhelmed with emotion, Sophia starts crying and swears her lifelong loyalty to him. The next morning, Takumi finds himself in the library, flipping through stacks of alchemy books, trying to get a deeper understanding of this world's magic. To his frustration, most of the texts barely scratch the surface, leaving him wondering why alchemy has nearly vanished, especially when it's so simple to understand. After piecing it together, he realizes these alchemy books are relics from an ancient magical civilization. Luckily for him, Lady Nolan's blessing lets him read every language in this world, which turns even the most complex alchemy into something that feels easy to master. Once he's gathered the bits of knowledge he needs, Takumi heads home, where Maria greets him with a tray of sandwiches. While they eat, Maria starts talking about how sweet it was to watch him and Sophia patch things up the day before. She admits she had been peeking through the curtains because respecting privacy doesn't seem to be her thing. She describes the moment like a dramatic play, where Sophia was the loyal knight swearing an oath, and Takumi, much to his embarrassment, was the noble princess. Maria and Maple start teasing him, saying he fits the role of a princess perfectly. Takumi tries laughing it off, but his cringing expression gives away how uncomfortable he feels. Later in the day, Takumi heads outside to work on his business. He spends the afternoon packaging a huge shipment of toilets for Papek. Maria and Sophia pitch in, helping clean and pack everything, while Takumi finds his mind wandering. He tells Maria and Sophia that he's starting to feel stuck in his routine. He dreams of exploring the world, collecting rare materials, tasting new dishes, and finding hidden ruins. He mentions taking Sophia as his bodyguard while leaving Maria behind to manage the mansion. Maria isn't happy about being left behind, especially when even the pet spider gets to tag along. She shoots him her signature guilty maid look, and Takumi falls for it immediately. Before making any final decisions, he checks Maria's stats by touching her face to pull up her status window. To his surprise, Maria's stats show she's ready for combat. Realizing she can handle herself, Takumi decides she'll join the trip, but insists she trains with Sophia to sharpen her skills. With everything sorted, Takumi gets busy crafting weapons and armor for Sophia and Maria. When he asks about their weapon preferences, Sophia comes prepared. She hands him a whole detailed list of what she wants, no hesitation. She also throws in a suggestion for Maria, deciding a spear would suit her and promising to train her how to use it. Takumi starts gathering the materials and dives into his work, using his alchemy manipulation magic to pull it all together. Meanwhile, Sophia's out in the yard training Maria, who quickly realizes that being a battle maid means less tea and way more sweat. Takumi finishes the weapons faster than anyone expected, throwing in a little personal flair. He adds a wing pattern to Sophia's weapon and a flame design to Maria's spear. To top it off, he enchants them with auto repair and attack boosts, making sure they're ready to handle whatever comes their way. While crafting, Takumi's mind wanders a little too far. He pictures Maria in her maid outfit, twirling a spear, and before he knows it, his imagination gets the best of him. He ends up with a dramatic anime-style nosebleed. Maria, apparently gifted with some kind of maid telepathy, or so she claims, immediately senses someone thinking inappropriate thoughts about her. Still, Takumi needs to craft armor. He briefly debates going full degenerate mode and making something closer to cosplay gear than real protection. But even he knows that's crossing the line. They're his employees, not models in some fantasy skit. The tricky part is figuring out their measurements. Asking them outright would probably get him labeled as a total creep, so he hatches a sneaky plan. Using his alchemy, he creates life-sized replicas of Sophia and Maria. With a grin straight out of a villain's handbook, he works on the designs while professionally staring at his creations. After days of work, the armor is finally done, though calling it armor might be generous. Sophia gets a simple breastplate, and Maria's gear is basically a red maid outfit with a few extra protective layers. To his surprise, the girls don't question it much. Maria beams with excitement, and even Sophia seems impressed, though she does raise a brow at how perfectly everything fits. She wonders how Takumi nailed their sizes without taking measurements. Of course, Takumi isn't about to spill the truth. He keeps his method a secret, handing over their new weapons and tossing in magical rings imbued with mana for good measure. With that squared away, the trio heads to the Adventurers Guild since Sophia and Maria need to get registered for travel licenses to leave the city. Once the girls get their shiny new guild cards, Takumi registers all three of them as a party and decides it's time to take on a quest. Just as Takumi's looking over the quest board, a bunch of loudmouth D-ranked adventurers rolls up, ready to start trouble. The big thug leading them starts running his mouth, telling Sophia and Maria they'd be better off ditching Takumi and hanging out with someone worthy instead of an F-ranked loser like him. But Takumi isn't about to let that slide. Sure, he's low-key terrified of the beefy thug, the giant who's carrying a whole squad of kids inside him, but he's not about to let anyone disrespect him or his crew. Taking a deep breath, he steps up and uses his physical enhancement magic to brace himself as the thug takes a swing. Before things can get completely out of hand, the guildmaster shows up, barking orders to shut the whole thing down. But when the big guy starts whining about his broken arm, the guildmaster immediately blames Takumi for it, not realizing the thug did it to himself when he hit Takumi. As the guildmaster is laying into Takumi, Sophia, and Maria, the receptionist Hans steps in, casually calling out the guildmaster and explaining that Takumi wasn't the one who started the fight, he was the victim. Takumi, meanwhile, is stunned to realize the bald, angry guy yelling at him is actually the guildmaster. Hans introduces him as Barak, but Barak, not even listening to Hans' introduction, orders him to heal the thug Takumi took out. After that, he drags Takumi and the girls into what feels like an interrogation room. He's grilling Takumi, trying to figure out what he's about. At first, Takumi keeps things vague, not wanting to spill too much. But then Hans mentions there were traces of magic back at the fight scene. Hearing this, Takumi realizes Hans' sense skills are crazy sharp. Even though he admits to having magic, Takumi insists he didn't use it on the thugs earlier. He explains that he coated himself with charcoal from his item box to protect against punches. Hans is skeptical until Takumi adds that he synthesized the charcoal into diamond. Hans' eyes light up, realizing this is alchemy. He even remembers that Takumi tried joining the alchemist guild the first day they met. But before Hans can dig deeper, Barak, still focused on the girls, asks if they're part of Takumi's party. When Sophia and Maria confirm they're with him, Hans suggests promoting Takumi to rank D. Barak agrees right away, figuring it'll stop random weaklings from trying to mess with him. Since Maria and Sophia had just joined the guild, Hans suggests they take on a few beginner quests to rank up quickly. It made sense getting stronger would help them protect Takumi better, so the girls were all in. Later that day, they head into the woods to tackle their 3 quests, taking out goblins, wiping out kobolds, and gathering some herbs. As they're making their way through the woods, Maple signals Takumi about some soggy-looking goblins lurking in the bushes. Takumi tips off the girls, and Sophia wastes no time rushing in to handle business. 2 goblins try to bolt, but Maple wraps their legs, giving Takumi and Maria an easy opening to stab them down. As they press on, Takumi can't shake the feeling that something's off. They've already taken out a ton of kobolds and goblins, but more keep showing up. It's like the woods are crawling with them. Sophia's got a theory. She figures there's probably an encampment nearby. And worse, there might even be a general running the show. When Sophia drops the words Goblin General, Takumi's confidence takes a nosedive, and he's suddenly wondering if this was all a terrible idea. Sophia doesn't help by mentioning it'd usually take 5D ranked adventure parties to handle a camp with a general. Even though Takumi's ready to nope out of this mission, Sophia insists they've got a shot if they combine their magic for a sneak attack. As much as Takumi hates the idea, he doesn't have much of a choice but to go along with it. To pile onto his stress, Maple casually announces it's about to evolve. Takumi, not wanting to deal with whatever comes next, quickly opens an emergency portal to a pocket dimension and sends Maple off to evolve in peace. Moving forward, they finally stumble upon the monster camp. Sophia scans the area and counts about 300 to 400 monsters. Takumi's stomach drops at the number, and he starts questioning every decision that led him to this moment. After pinpointing the monsters' positions, the group gets ready to make their move. They all raise their fists, showing off their magic rings, which they use to launch a combined attack. Sophia unleashes a deadly wind strike, Maria rains down piles of rocks, and Takumi fires off a massive firestorm. Together, their magic completely wrecks the monsters' camp, taking down most of the horde in one go. Just when Takumi starts to think they've pulled it off, out from the rubble stomps the Goblin General, flanked by 2 armored knights. The 3 of them look as ugly as sin, and Takumi can't help but wonder if this day can get any worse. Sophia charges at the Goblin General, leaving the knights for Takumi and Maria to handle. Takumi, scared out of his wits, braces himself but still manages to defend against a goblin's attack. Summoning his fire magic, blasts the monster into oblivion, while Maria takes care of the second knight. The trio eventually completes their quests and stumbles back to the guild visibly drained. When Hen sees the enormous pile of magic stones they've gathered, his jaw drops. He's amazed they finished such difficult quests in a single day. Out of curiosity, Hans escorts them to the back to meet the guildmaster. Just as surprised as Hans, Barak struggles to believe that a group like theirs managed to achieve what typically requires multiple rank D adventure parties. Before he can voice more skepticism, Maple returns from her evolution in a half-human and casually slaps the guildmaster on the head. Takumi and Sophia are stunned by Maple's new form, but Maria can barely contain her excitement, thrilled to finally hear Maple speak. The guildmaster, still recovering from Maple's unexpected entrance, promotes Takumi to rank E and upgrades Maria and Sophia to rank F. Later, Maria approaches Takumi with some designs for underwear she plans to make for herself and Sophia. However, the designs seem bland, so Takumi sketches something more feminine. Maria blushes but excitedly asks him to make it. As they discuss, Maple interrupts to inform Takumi that Papek has arrived. Apparently, Papek fainted after seeing Maple in her half-human form. Once he regains consciousness, Papek delivers an important message. The Lord of Bolton wants to meet Takumi. The request stems from the magical toilets Takumi created to help the town's sanitation. So when Takumi visits the Lord, he's thanked repeatedly for his contribution to improving life in Bolton. The meeting leaves Takumi with a surprisingly positive impression of Supreme being Nolan. Later that evening, Maple delivers the custom-made underwear to Maria and Sophia. Thrilled with how comfortable it feels, they tease Takumi about trying it on in front of him. Embarrassed, Takumi freaks out, stammers a few excuses and bolts to his room, desperately trying to resist his dirty desires. The scene cuts to Takumi putting the final touches on his refrigerators. Maple checks them out, stepping inside and feeling the chill, thinking it's real nice in there. Takumi tells her that's the whole point, to keep food fresh longer so it doesn't spoil. The rest of the girls gather around, feeling the cool air, but Takumi warns them not to leave the doors open too long. He breaks down how he built the fridge and Maria thanks him for making it, excited that she can cook with fresh ingredients anytime she wants. Takumi asks what color they want, and they go with the blue one. He takes the others to Papek, saying it's time to start his next project. Sophia tilts her head, asking if he's already making something new. Takumi nods, saying he's been thinking about upgrading their equipment. After fighting the Goblin General, the other day he realized they needed better gear, especially since they're planning to travel one day. His blacksmith and alchemist skills have leveled up, so instead of magic steel, he's going to work with adamantite and mithril this time. Sophia blinks, a little surprised, but she's excited to see what he comes up with. Later, Takumi asks Hans where he can find mithril and adamantite. Hans explains that both are rare and no blacksmiths around here can work with them. Even so, he hands Takumi a list of blacksmiths in the city, saying that since Takumi is an alchemist, he might be able to synthesize the ores himself. Takumi wasn't expecting that, but Hans tells him mining would be way faster. Synthesizing would burn through too much mana and take too much time. He tells Takumi he can find the ores in a town called Horaz, northwest of the Kingdom of Barkula. The catch is that he can't enter the mine unless he's a registered member of the Blacksmith Guild. But there's a workaround. If he accepts a quest to clear out the monsters that show up in the mine, they'll let him in. He can mine while he's there, knocking out two problems at once. Takumi leans back, thinking that sounds like a solid plan. The Guildmaster pops up out of nowhere, telling Takumi that Bolton's running low on treat wood since most adventurers are too busy hunting black buffalo this time of year. He says it's turning into a real problem, then casually points out that the treat wood comes from the Forest of Death, which just happens to be on the way to Horaz. That's when Takumi realizes this dude wants him to go hunt some treats. The Guildmaster doesn't even try to deny it. He reminds Takumi that hauling all that treat wood back won't be an issue for him since he's got space-time magic. Takumi's cool with it since he uses treat wood himself, but the Guildmaster still ain't done. He tells him there's a blacksmith who needs an escort to Horaz and asks him to take that job too. Takumi sighs, thinking this guild really knows how to squeeze every last drop out of him. The Guildmaster dangles a promotion, saying he'll move up to rank D once the job's done. But Takumi isn't biting, telling him straight up that he's never even done an escort mission before. He suggests sending the Lion Fangs for this kind of work, but the Guildmaster says they're already tied up with another quest. Takumi lets that sink in, then asks how long the trip to Horaz takes. Hans says 7 days on a regular horse carriage, 4 if he gets a monster horse carriage. Takumi nods, saying he'll take a monster horse carriage, but Hans shakes his head, saying they're fresh out. That's when Riel walks in, letting them know his party is using them. Hans raises an eyebrow, asking if Riel's crew already wrapped up their quest. Riel shakes his head, saying they haven't. He just came back to drop off a black buffalo they took down along the way. Then he warns the Guildmaster that these upcoming escort missions are going to be tough since the number of advanced species in the forest is going up. The Guildmaster shrugs, saying that just means better rewards. Riel looks at him like he's got no heart, then says he'll be heading out tomorrow morning to regroup with his party. Takumi offers him a place to crash at his house in the meantime, even throws in access to the bath, which Riel happily accepts. Takumi tells him he'll send over his address later since he's got some things to take care of first. Riel shrugs and says he'll just tag along instead. Takumi and Riel head over to Papek's company, where Papek agrees to lend him a monster horse carriage for the mission, but in return he asks Takumi to wholesale some of the ores he mines. Takumi has no problem with that. Papek then shows off the fridge Takumi made, completely obsessed with it, begging him to make more. Meanwhile, back at Takumi's place, Sophia is pacing around, worried since her master hasn't come home yet. She starts thinking something might have happened to him and regrets not going with him. Later that night, Takumi and Riel make their way back to the mansion, frustrated that they couldn't find a single blacksmith who can work with mithril. Takumi mentions that they met everyone on the list except one since that shop was closed. As they walk, they come across a hooded figure. Riel immediately senses a dangerous aura from them, grabs Takumi, and tries to back away. But before they can move, the figure stops them. The hood comes down, revealing Sophia, who instantly moves to attack Real. Thinking he was planning to kidnap her master, Takumi jumps in, stopping her just in time and explaining everything. She realizes her mistake, and both she and Takumi apologize to Real, but he brushes it off, saying it's fine, though now he has even more questions for Takumi. When they return to the mansion, Real steps inside and freezes when he sees all the women in Takumi's house. He looks around, clearly confused about what's going on. Takumi simply says he needed help around the house, so he bought some slaves. Real processes this for a moment before his eyes land on Maple, who has now evolved into an Arakan. He asks if she remembers him, and she does, but she completely hates him, crushing his heart on the spot. Real sighs, muttering that it must be nice for Takumi to be surrounded by so many beautiful women, while he's the only one in his party still single. Takumi, trying to lift his spirits, tells him that none of them are his girlfriends, which immediately makes Real turn to Maria and Sophia, asking them both out on a date. They refuse without hesitation, saying they have dedicated their lives to Takumi. Takumi tells him to go take a bath, and later Real is soaking in the tub, silent with tears in his eyes. Meanwhile, Takumi and the others are having a meeting where Sophia agrees with his plan to take down some treants, saying she is also fine with exterminating monsters in the mine to gather ores. The whole team is ready to give it their all, and Takumi tells them they'll be leaving in 3 days, already thinking about making more equipment for the party. The next morning, Real leaves the mansion, and later Takumi checks out the mana draining sword he got from the Goblin Emperor. He figures out that it's made of tungsten carbide, one of the hardest materials out there. The sword is way too big for a human to use, so he decides to break it down into a block of metal. When he tries to melt it, the sword puts up a fight, refusing to budge, but he doesn't give up, pushing his skills to the limit until he finally reshapes the massive weapon into 2 blades that humans can wield. He explains that the blade absorbs mana from an opponent, making it sharper and stronger, and he decides to give one of them to Sophia. 3 days later, he and his crew are ready to head out for Horace. Papik meets up with him before they leave, letting him know that his client is already inside the carriage. Takumi steps up and introduces himself, and the client introduces himself as D-Gambo, a blacksmith. With everything set, they hit the road. Back at the guildmaster gets word from the Horace Guild that monster activity in the forest has increased. He grumbles, realizing this info came too late. Takumi's group already left for the Forest of Death. He can only hope they don't run into any advanced species. Meanwhile, over in town, a man from the royal capital meets with Papik, thanking him for supplying the king with toilets. He says they want to bring them to the entire royal capital. Papik is pleased to hear that, while the man mentions that these toilets could completely solve their sewage problems. However, the news about them has spread too far, and now the Holy Sidonia Empire has caught wind of it. That means they're definitely going to make a move. Meanwhile, jumping a year into the future, Yamato and Akira have become powerful fighters, shocking everyone with how much their skills have improved. Akane, though, is still wary of Elizabeth. Back to Takumi's group, they've stopped near the Forest of Death. Takumi sets up a barrier and tells D-Gambo to stay inside while they handle the treants. The scene shifts to them deep in the Forest of Death, where Takumi asks Sophia how they're supposed to tell treants apart from regular trees. Sophia tells him he needs to focus, sense their magic, and keep his eyes sharp. She points one out as an example, and without hesitation Takumi charges in. The treant lashes out with its roots, but Maple and the others cover him, giving him the opening he needs. He takes it down with his spear, leveling up his axemanship and logging skills in the process. Takumi starts thinking this hunt is going to be easy if the treants are this weak, but Sophia quickly shuts that down. She points out that they're surrounded. She suggests they switch to magic to deal with them more efficiently. Everyone starts blasting the treants with spells, and Takumi racks up skill upgrades as they fight through the swarm. Then an elder treant emerges. The girls go in, burning and slicing through it, but the thing just regenerates instantly like nothing happened. Sophia tells Takumi they need to finish it off in one shot, then tells him to wrap his sword in fire magic. He does, charging straight at the elder treant, dodging its attacks before driving his blade right into its eye. The monster collapses, turning into nothing, and Takumi's skills jump up even more. Looking down, he notices a strange fruit on the ground and picks it up, surprised that treants even grow fruit. Sophia tells him they're called miracle apples, saying they're super rare. Takumi figures they should take them back, while Maria's already thinking about turning them into apple pie. Later, the group finally reaches Horace, heading straight for the Adventurers Guild. Takumi takes a quest to hunt some iron moles to secure an entry pass into the mine. Later, he and his crew are inside the mine with D-Gambo, chipping away at the rock. Takumi ends up striking Mithril, and D-Gambo points him towards some adamantite ore as well. He shakes his head, saying Takumi must have some crazy luck, finding all this on his first mining trip. Suddenly, something stirs beneath them. An iron mole bursts out from underground. The second it shows up, Takumi reacts fast, using light magic to blind it. That's all Sophia needs. She moves in and finishes it off in one strike. Everyone stares, asking how he took them down so easily. Takumi just shrugs, saying it made sense since they live in the dark. Light had to be their weakness. Sophia is still surprised at how simple that was, while Maria sulks, disappointed she didn't get to do anything. After clearing out a massive haul of ore, they head back to Bolton. The next day, Takumi visits Digambo's shop, asking him to teach him the basics of synthesizing and forging mithril and adamantite alloys. Digambo takes him in, showing him how to craft a mithril knife from scratch. Later, Takumi gets to work upgrading the girl's armor with the new materials he collected, making sure everyone's gear is stronger than ever. The scene shifts to the girls checking out their new armor, completely stunned by the number of unique skills and enchantments packed into it. They can't even find the words to describe it. Sophia's armor is wind and water-based, while Maria's is fire and earth. Takumi explains that to infuse their armor with elemental power, he had to fill magic stones with his mana until they were completely charged and turned blue. Maria then asks what he did to boost his thunderclap skill, and he reveals that he enchanted it with enhanced agility, which lets him run ridiculously fast. To prove it, he takes off at full speed, but he loses control almost immediately, crashing straight into the wall. The girls, trying to spare him the embarrassment, act like they didn't see anything. Meanwhile, he tells himself he needs to figure out how to handle this speed. After that, he hands Maria her new spear, Explode, which can shoot fireballs. Sophia gets her Spear Tempest, which can unleash wind energy. She grips it tight, looking Takumi in the eye, saying she wants to protect him no matter what happens. If he's ever in danger, she's ready to risk everything for him. To back that up, she asks him to craft a shield for her so she can defend him better. Takumi appreciates the thought, telling her he'll make the shield, but also reminding her to value her own life. Meanwhile, Lady Nolan is watching Takumi from a distance. At the same time, she checks in on Akira and Yamato, seeing a vision that gives off a bad feeling. The story jumps a year into the future, where in the Holy Empire of Sidonia, the heroes are gearing up to head into the kingdom of Samandor. The Emperor places his trust in them, and they swear they'll do whatever it takes to bring peace to the world. Back in the present, Takumi finishes crafting the shield, but looks completely exhausted. Sophia watches from a window, feeling guilty for asking him to make it after seeing how drained he is. She sighs, thinking that if he had someone helping him in the workshop, things would be much easier. The scene then shifts to the royal capital, Bakalatos, in the kingdom of Barkula. The king receives a letter revealing that the Holy Empire of Sidonia has learned about purification magic and is now demanding details. The man beside him wonders if another messenger will be arriving in the next few days. The king, reading between the lines, says the letter may sound polite, but make no mistake, it's a straight-up threat. The scene cuts to a man from Sidonia meeting with the king of Barkula. He brings up the rumors about them using a magical device to purify their sewers, saying word of it has reached their land. He goes on to say that the Church of Divine Light has sent an appeal to Sidonia's pope, claiming that light magic is a gift from the Supreme Being meant for the church alone. That means purification magic should also fall under their authority. The king plays along, acting clueless, asking what exactly that means. The man explains that the Pope is demanding the purification magic circle and its patent be handed over to the church. The king shrugs it off, saying if this power truly belongs to the church's supreme being, they should be able to create the magic circle themselves. The man adds that the Pope also considers using sacred purification magic on a toilet unacceptable. On top of that, they expect the person responsible for this device to be turned over to the Empire of Sidonia. The king refuses outright. The man warns him that if he doesn't comply, the Pope will recall all the church's priests from the kingdom. The king doesn't even blink, telling him to go ahead and do it. The scene shifts to Papik telling Takumi about all this. Takumi's stunned that the king took such a strong stance just for him. Papik assures him it's nothing to worry about, but Takumi knows this could turn the church against them. Papik explains that there's another religion in this kingdom aside from the Church of Divine Light. That's when Takumi figures it out, he's talking about the Church of Creation. Papik seems surprised that Takumi knows about it. He then explains that the Church of Creation worships a supreme being named Nolan. Takumi wonders which supreme being the Church of Divine Light follows, and Papik tells him it's Anat. Shifting gears, he explains that Barkula values religious freedom, and the Church of Creation has been around for a long time. Their priests offer recovery magic in exchange for a simple show of appreciation, while the priests of the Church of Divine Light demand hefty payments for their services. Takumi realizes that the Church of Divine Light is being supported by the Holy Empire of Sidonia, and he decides it is best for him not to get involved with them. Papik then informs him that he is here today with a request. He explains that he offered samples of his toilets and refrigerators to the king through Marquis Godwin, and the king has asked the Marquis to arrange a meeting with Takumi. Takumi is surprised by this development. Papik adds that the king will not be angry if Takumi refuses, but he gives him those irresistible puppy dog eyes that influence his decision anyway. Later, Takumi tells his slaves that he will be going to the royal capital of Bakalatos and asks if they would like to come along. They agree, excited to visit the capital for the first time, and Takumi announces that they will be leaving in a week while asking them to prepare in the meantime. Maria wonders how long it takes to get to the capital, and Takumi explains that it will take them a week using monster horses. She notes that they would need a lot of food under those conditions. Takumi leaves the food preparations to Maria and mentions that he will be making new cloaks for them in the meantime. When questioned about the reason, he reveals that Papek has secured some dark elemental magic stones for him, and with those he can enchant the cloaks with block perception. Sophia observes that this will come in handy during combat and notes that it will also help the girls avoid being accosted by bad guys while in town. The scene then shifts to the two girls shopping in town. Maria comments that Takumi is not valuing himself as he should, while Sophia agrees and starts listing all of his good qualities. Maria is surprised by how much Sophia knows about their master and teases her about it. Sophia blushes and changes the subject. Maria soon realizes that Sophia is totally in love. The scene cuts to Takumi praying to Supreme Being Nolan at the church. She asks him where her offering is, and he is glad to see her again. Knowing that he will be heading to the capital soon, she asks him to pray for safe travels and requests that he bring out her offering. Takumi responds by asking her some questions first and inquires if Anat is a supreme being separate from her. She informs him that she is the only supreme being, and Takumi immediately wonders about the identity of Anat, even though he receives no clear answer from her aside from a vague promise that he will learn in due time. Takumi remains intensely curious because the Empire of Sidonia appears to be drawing ever closer to him. He remembers her warning that some of her blessings might unravel depending on his actions, and he brings up whether Sidonia's interference is a result of that. She denies it, reminding him that Sidonia is precisely why he is here, and that this matter goes far beyond the power of a simple blessing. Takumi recalls that heroes were once summoned by Sidonia and laments that he has heard nothing of them since his arrival in this world. The Supreme Being then reveals that she has actually sent him a year back in time so that the heroes are yet to be summoned. Takumi is left to wonder at the complexity of Lady Nolan's actions, while she cuts short his barrage of questions by declaring that time is up. Before he can calm his curiosity any further, Lady Nolan knocks him out so that he awakens in the real world. He soon accepts that she was dodging his inquiries because frankly, he has no plans of meeting the heroes anyway. The scene shifts to the Holy Empire of Sidonia 10 months later, where Akira is seen training with a sword. He has improved considerably from before, while Akane and Yamato observe his progress with quiet admiration. Later, Takumi presents the girls with their new cloaks, and Maple notices that they match his clothes perfectly. Sophia remarks that the style is far too brazen, and Takumi wonders if she really means it. She confirms that she does, and his relief is palpable. Following this, it is revealed that Takumi intends to build a carriage rather than borrowing one from the guild because he believes a self-made one will be more comfortable. He mentions that while he can make a carriage, they lack a monster horse, so he considers borrowing one from the guild. Maria intervenes by reminding him that this town is known as the City of Adventurers for a reason. She recalls the perils of the Forest of Death and explains that there are many areas teeming with monsters. Maria reveals that there are horns and drake horses available that are both faster and stronger than monster horses. The scene cuts to them moving through the forest near the city. Takumi wonders if drake horses are really faster than monster horses. Sophia tells him they are, and have way more stamina too. Takumi thinks it might be because they're dragon-type monsters, but Maria corrects him. They're not dragon-type. They look similar to regular horses, but they've got a horn, and their bodies are covered in dragon-like scales. Takumi realizes that's where the name comes from. Maple gets excited since she's finally about to have a friend that's also a monster. Right then, Takumi and the others come across a bush wolf, but the monster runs right past them. Sophia looks confused, but Takumi figures it's because of their new cloaks. If a bush wolf couldn't smell them, then these cloaks are doing their job. Sophia pulls hers off, saying they need to fight to train and get stronger. The scene shifts to her taking down a boar. Maria thinks they've got some extra meat now. Maple urges them to hurry. Takumi spots a dead treant and decides to take it since he needs treant wood for the carriage. He was planning to buy some from Papek anyway. Maple gets impatient, telling them to move faster, but Takumi and the rest keep cutting meat and gathering wood. Frustrated, Maple takes off on her own, hopping through the forest. She notices a lot of dead treants around and senses something ahead. She finds a wounded drake horse. It attacks suddenly, but she immediately dodges. It reminds her of when she was injured and Takumi helped her. She tells the drake horse her master is amazing at healing. Right then, giant ants show up. She realizes these things are what hurt the drake horse. She binds them up with her threads, and the drake horse finishes them off. She turns to go call Takumi, but more ants surround them. She weaves layers of thread into a barrier, holding them back. However, the ants start ripping through the barrier, and Maple tries reaching out to her master with her telepathy. But she ain't getting nothing back. She's wondering if he's too busy chopping wood to even notice. She hopes he ain't straight up forgotten about her and left for home. Meanwhile, the drake horse drops unconscious. At the same time, the ants keep tearing at the barrier, and Maple starts crying, thinking about her master. Right when the ants finally bust through, Maple throws herself over the drake horse, trying to shield it with her own body. Then she feels a hand on her head. She looks up at him. The girls have already handled the ants, and Maple turns to Takumi, asking where he's been. She was calling for him. He tells her her own threads messed up their connection, but the second he felt their mana link break, he knew something was wrong and tracked it back to her. He says sorry for showing up late, and Maria notices the Drake horse. Takumi takes one look and can tell it passed out from its injuries. Maple begs him to save it. He realizes Maple was trying to protect the horse, so he moves in to heal it, but it pushes him away. Even knocked out, it's still wary of humans. Maple knows if this keeps up, the horse ain't gonna make it. That's when Sophia senses some monsters heading their way. Takumi's got no choice. He throws both Maple and the horse into his pocket dimension. Sophia warns him it's a bad move. Without a familiar contract, carrying a high-level monster like that could wreck him. He tells her he's fine, but he's already feeling it. Then he grabs a potion trying to drink it, but before he can, he collapses. Later, Takumi is laid up in his room, knocked out cold, the girls watching over him. Turns out he's been out for over 12 hours. Sophia tells Maria he ain't waking up as long as he's holding that pocket dimension together. Maria wonders why Maple hasn't come out yet. Sophia figures the Drake horse is still too scared. Until Maple lets go of the pocket dimension, it's gonna keep holding the horse inside. And if that keeps up, Takumi's gonna waste away. Sophia says they gotta do something, so she kisses Takumi's hand, tracking his mana until she finds Maple. Then, she asks Maple how the Drake horse is doing, and Maple says it's still scared. At the same time, Sophia wonders if there's a way to bring it out. Maple says she can, but if they let it out somewhere unfamiliar, it's gonna freak out. Sophia points out they can't heal it if it stays inside, and Takumi's gonna stay knocked out until something changes. She suggests Maple recreate that barrier she made back in the forest to keep the Drake horse from realizing where it actually is. Maple understands and steps out into the garden with the Drake horse, setting up a barrier around them. Sophia gets ready to head to Papix Company for some monster medicine, but Maria offers to go instead, saying Sophia should stay and keep an eye on their master. The scene shifts to Sophia sitting by Takumi's bedside watching him sleep. Takumi dreams about all the time he spent with everyone. After a while, he wakes up and spots Sophia dozing off beside him. She wakes up and smiles, relieved to see him awake. He thanks her for taking care of him. Takumi says he needs to check on the Drake horse, so he steps into Maple's barrier. He notices the horse looks a bit better and asks if she'd like to be his friend too, since she and Maple already seem to get along. Using his magic, he tames her. Then, he casts a high-level healing spell, fully restoring the horse, and Maple takes down the barrier. Takumi turns to everyone and says they've got a new companion now. Maple excitedly asks him to give her a name. Then he decides to name her Camellia, keeping with the leaf theme like Maple. He explains that Camellia is a tree that keeps its leaves all year and blooms with red and white flowers. The girls think it's a beautiful name, and Maria says they should eat, mentioning that she just finished cooking dinner. The scene moves to Palom Trading Company, deep in the capital of Barkila. The owner is trying to sell off a beastman slave one that can use magic. Should have been a big deal, but the buyer ain't biting. He sees the girls got something rare, but he ain't paying for potential. Tells her to show what she can do with that magic. She stands there, voice steady, but unsure, saying she's gonna study hard and prove herself useful. But that ain't what he's looking for. He needs someone who can pull their weight now, not later. Without another word, he turns away and walks off. Rava's face falls, disappointment hitting hard. The owner tells her not to let it get to her, says the right master will come along sooner or later. Later that night, Rava sits alone in her room, lost in thought. A few years back, she was with her family, struggling to get by. They didn't have much, but they had each other. She left for the city to make some money, promised her little brother she'd send something back, but she ain't been able to do nothing. Scene shifts over to Takumi's mansion. Maria looks at him, arms crossed, tells him he heading to Gambo's workshop again. He nods, says he got some blacksmith work to handle for the carriage. Sophia chimes in, asking if he's holding up. He's been running non-stop, taking on extra orders for potions and refrigerators, hasn't had a break in days. Maria tells him to slow down, think about his health. He waves her off, says he's fine, then heads out the door. At the guild, Takumi walks in and catches some folks talking something about a creepy creature. He turns to the receptionist, asking what's going on. The guy explains they've been getting reports about some strange creature lurking on the outskirts of town. No attacks, no damage, but folks don't trust it. He slides a sketch over the counter, and Takumi takes a look, his eyebrows lifting. The receptionist glances up, asking what brings him in. Takumi leans in slightly, saying he's here to register a new pet. The guy perks up, says he's seen all kinds of pets. Nothing surprises him anymore. But when Takumi brings out Camellia, the whole guild goes dead silent. People whisper, eyes darting between Takumi's pet and the sketch. It's the same creature folks been talking about. Seeing this, the guild master pulls Takumi aside for a talk, while at the same time, we catch Sophia wandering through town. She remembers pulling up to the Mulan Trading Company, asking for someone who could help Takumi with his work, but nobody fit the bill. Mulan did say she'd check with her trader contacts, and Sophia appreciated that. Then out of nowhere, Milan mentioned how she'd changed since signing that contract with Takumi. Now in the present, Maria runs into Sofia. Sofia asks if she's wrapped up her shopping, but Maria shakes her head, says she still has to hit the butcher. She brings up how Takumi's been looking drained lately, like he's running on fumes, so she wants to make sure he's eating right. Sofia wishes she could take some of the weight off his shoulders, but alchemy's not her thing. Maria, on the other hand, says she's gonna step up her game in the kitchen. Sofia figures she should lend a hand, but Maria waves her off. She doesn't want her taking away the one thing she does. Sofia doesn't mind, but Maria picks up on something. She narrows her eyes, tilting her head slightly. Something's different. Hearing it again throws Sofia off. She asks what changed, and Maria tells her her face looks softer now. Sofia blushes, then quickly flips the conversation, saying they should go scoop up Takumi. They head to Digambo's workshop and find Takumi knocked out cold. Digambo shakes his head, says the guy worked himself straight into exhaustion, passed out in the middle of everything. If he keeps this up, he's gonna crash hard. Later, Takumi finishes putting together his new carriage and tells Camellia to sketch it. He plans to take it for a test run, but before that the girls check it out and realize it ain't even a carriage. It's a full-on moving house, with rooms, bathrooms, the whole setup. They go for a ride, and even though the outside shakes, the inside stays smooth as butter. Takumi asks Maria what she thinks, and she's into it. But then she throws out an idea: he should slap some blades on the sides. He asks why, and she just grins, saying it'd look badass. After letting Camellia cruise around town in the carriage for a few days, her stats leveled up. Next came the day to head to the capital, and Takumi noticed that the Lion Fangs would be escorting them. Real asked what kind of creature was pulling his carriage, and Heath explained it was a drake horse. Just then Godwin and Papik rolled in, with Papik excited to see the ride. He asked Takumi if he could take a look inside, and Takumi was cool with it. Papik stepped in and was blown away, shocked that Takumi built the carriage himself. Takumi confirmed he did, and Papik pressed for the details on how he pulled it off. He got super hyped, even saying he would pay for something like that. But Godwin stepped in to calm him down. Papik apologized, and Godwin remarked that the carriage was badass. Godwin said he would feel lucky to have a carriage like that, and Takumi realized Godwin wanted one made for him. Godwin mentioned he could shell out as much as 100 platinum coins damn straight, and Takumi was stunned by the price, thinking it would equal 1 billion yen. They set off for the capital, and on the way, Godwin noted that Takumi had made huge contributions to his domain. He declared that he was about to take on an even bigger role and become known far and wide, a view his butler shared. Godwin added that Takumi's exceptional talent was attracting all sorts of attention, so he would need protection from shady bullshit. While he could handle threats within the kingdom, when it came to Sidonia and other nations, he had no clue what schemes might be in play, so he had to stay alert. The scene then shifted to Sidonia many months later, where Akane was reading that the supreme being Anat created mankind in her own image and then fashioned beast men from animals to serve mankind. After that, she created elves and dwarves, placing them beneath mankind. Later, Akane examined the slave collar meant for the beast men in her room and felt a deep sense of hell no. At the same time, Takumi and the crew rolled into Baccalado's capital, and he was glad they didn't run into any monster drama on the way. Real points out that they did have some trouble, but Takumi's slaves and pets wiped out the monsters in no time. They joke that it made their job a total breeze. Papik then tells Takumi he wants to chop it up once they hit the inn. When they finally get there, Papik explains he's planning to gift the king a ride just like Takumi's carriage. He says he already ran it by Godwin, and they both agree it's the perfect way to show off Takumi's killer skills. Papik adds they've got an audience with the king in 5 days, and he figures it'd be tough to build a new carriage that fast, so he asks Takumi to start working on it as soon as they get back to Bolton. But Takumi fires back that he can build it right here. He points out that if he did it in Bolton, they'd have to haul it all the way back, which is a major hassle. He's confident he can make do with the materials he's got on hand, though he does mention he'll need a decent workspace. Papik promises to sort that out. Later, we catch Takumi briefing his slaves about the new project. He tells them that Papik hooked him up with a spot at the garden of the Palom Company. Sofia chimes in, mentioning she's heard this company is a solid, trustworthy slave trading outfit run by a guy named Burton. She insists he needs some extra help with his work. Maria points out that Takumi barely caught a break before this trip, and now he's cranking out production non-stop, a move that's reckless even for him. Takumi just shrugs, saying he's not really tired. Sofia, excited about heading to a slave trading company, asks Takumi to pick up another slave. He insists that the 2 they've got are enough at first, but Sofia keeps pushing since the pair can't help him out with alchemy. Eventually, he agrees to buy another slave, and they make it clear that the new addition has to be a woman damn straight. The following day, we catch Takumi at the company asking Burton for a slave who can back him up with his alchemy work. Burton drops that he's been hearing rumors about Takumi using alchemy to whip up a carriage made from mithril and adamantite, and he figures Takumi's gonna need someone with real magical chops. Meanwhile, over in the company garden, Maria and Sofia realize they've lost track of Maple. Maria's seriously worried cause Maple mentioned she wanted to explore the company's buildings. Sophia decides to go looking for her and heads into one of the buildings. She can't find her at first, and just then she hears a scream and rushes over. She finds Maple and notices Reva is totally freaked out by her presence. Maple tries to calm Reva down, but it doesn't do much, so Sophia steps in, helping her up and soothing her. While picking up Reva's book, Sophia notices it's really old. Reva explains it's an encyclopedia on Arnold-style alchemy, the best way to get the basics down. Later, as Sophie is heading back to the garden, she bumps into Takumi, who pulls her along to meet a slave candidate. They soon learn that the candidate is none other than Reva, and Burton makes the introduction. Takumi fills her in on what he's doing, and Reva's thinking she's got to nail it this time. He asks if she's into alchemy, and she says she is, but then she remembers what her last buyer said, so she clams up because she's still not that savvy. Sophia then lets Takumi know that Reva's been picking up magic on her own here. She even saw her with an alchemy book earlier. Trying to remember the name of the book, both Reva and Takumi blurt it out together. They're both hyped about the book, and seeing that Burton and Sophia figure they're clearly cut from the same cloth. Takumi then sketches an alchemy circle on paper and asks what it's for. Reva manages to guess that it's the alchemic circle for spinning sweets, but since it's a bit different from what she knows, she gets second guessing. Before long, she breaks down in tears wondering what to do, and tells Takumi she's clueless. She admits this isn't the sweet spinning circle they use back home and thinks she's gonna get rejected again, but Takumi reaches out his hand, welcoming her into his crew. Reva's caught off guard. She couldn't figure out the alchemic circle Takumi asked her about, but he tells her she kinda did, at least enough to know it's for spinning sweets, so it's all good. He explains that it doesn't matter if the materials are different, and it's impressive she picked up on the circle so fast. She hesitates, then asks if he's really taking her in. When he says yes, relief washes over her. She finally has a master. They seal the deal with a contract, and Takumi tells her she'll be getting daily wages from now on. Without missing a beat, Reva asks him to send all her wages home. Takumi blinks, caught off guard, noting that she means all her wages. Without hesitation, she nods, knowing her family's dirt poor, and the only reason they've gotten by this long is because she sold herself into slavery, but she also knows that money's running low. She's not about to let her little brother grow up starving, and she sure as hell doesn't want her mom struggling any more than she already has. Takumi tells her she'll never buy her freedom if she keeps sending everything back. But before he can say more, Sophia cuts in, telling him to respect Reva's choice. One day, she'll be skilled enough to stand on her own, and honestly serving a good master forever doesn't sound that bad. Takumi lets out a breath, nodding before introducing Reva to the rest of the crew. She's glad to meet them. Scene cuts to the Holy Empire of Sidonia in the present day. The Emperor gets the news 3 damn missives, and the Kingdom of Barkula still won't hand over Takumi. He's ready to teach them a lesson, but before he can move, Elizabeth steps in. The heroes are about to be summoned, and she tells him to hold off for a few months, no need to act rashly. He grits his teeth, frustration boiling inside him. Letting this slide doesn't sit right with him. Elizabeth has a different idea rather than force. They'll use faith. Word will spread someone's out here disrespecting the Church of Divine Light. That alone will set the believers on fire. And when that happens, the Church of Divine Light Squadron sure as hell won't stay quiet. The scene shifts to Takumi working on the frame for his new carriage. Reva's watching kinda impressed, thinking it's wild how he's using a complex alchemy circle to pull off adamantite like it's nothing. Takumi just smirks, saying it only looks fancy. He tells her she'll be making circles like this before long. She ain't buying it though. Those circles look way too complicated. But Takumi tells her it ain't about being a genius. It's about being excited about alchemy, and she's already got that spark. The next thing, it's the day Takumi's supposed to meet the king. His carriage is done, and some old man rolls up checking it out. He asks if the carriage is his, but Takumi says it isn't. He built it for the king. The old man nods, saying Takumi's even better than people say. Takumi's wondering how this guy even knows his name. Then Papek and Godwin show up running over, calling the old man the king. That hits Takumi hard. He bows, and Papek and Godwin do the same. Godwin says they were supposed to have this meeting in the audience chamber, but the king waves that off, saying he just wanted to thank Takumi without all the formal stuff. Takumi ain't sure what he means by that. Then the king gets real serious. He says thanks to Takumi, they finally got a fix for the sewage problem that's been messing with them for too long. He even bows his head, but Takumi tells him not to do that. The king apologizes, saying normally he'd throw a big banquet, shower him with rewards, maybe even give him a noble title, but that would bring too much attention his way. Takumi don't care about all that. He thanks the king for keeping him safe from Sidonia, and the king just nods, saying it's his duty. Takumi respects that. After getting his reward for solving the sewage issue, he heads out. As he leaves, the king tells his ministers to keep quiet about this meeting, and they lock it down right away. Takumi's influence ain't slowing down, and they know it. Once those magical devices start getting shipped to other nations, keeping his identity under wraps might not be an option anymore. The king's already thinking ahead, saying this is exactly what's been worrying him. He's got no doubt the Church of Divine Light is gonna strike back when that happens. A few days roll by, and Takumi and his crew are back at their mansion. First thing, he buys the place from Paypack, making it officially his. Later, he's sitting down with the girls, and he ain't happy about them skipping their wages again. Maria tells him it's fine, he already makes sure they've got food and everything they need, and the allowance he gives her is enough. Sophia feels the same way, but Takumi tries to make them see reason, telling them it's smart to have some savings. Their contracts with him ain't gonna last forever. Sophia ain't worried. She plans to serve him for life, and she's sure he's gonna go before her. When that happens, she swears she'll protect his grave for the rest of her days. Maria just wants to die a day after him and be buried right next to him. But Takumi ain't following their logic at all. Scene shifts to Sidonia. Elizabeth's being shown this strange contraption they're using in Bolton to purify toilets. The guy explaining it says they managed to snatch one when they infiltrated Bacalados. Elizabeth takes one look at it and calls it heterodoxy. She starts thinking about whether these people even care about the wrath of the goddess. The messenger tells her that most believers in the church are set on wiping out whatever's behind this corruption, and she agrees. She tells him that the real source of this evil is sitting in Bolton, and she orders him to take it out before it extends beyond this. Meanwhile, Reva's got something on her mind. She tells Takumi she wants to register with the guild and start working as an adventurer too. She's sure this'll help sharpen her alchemy skills and turn her into a better handicraftsman. Takumi figures it makes sense adventuring helps boost mana, so he goes ahead and gets Reva registered at the guild. She's hyped about it, thanking Hans for helping her send her reward money home for cheap. Hans just shrugs, saying it's nothing special. Adventurers do it all the time. Then he asks Takumi if he's picked a party name yet, but Takumi hasn't even thought about it. Hans tells him he should, since his group is already considered top tier in the guild. Takumi ain't sure they even need a name, he's not trying to go pro as an adventurer. He points out that they're nothing like Lion's Fang, who have clear role divisions. Compared to them, his crew is just a bunch of misfits rolling together. He adds that things might be different if he could fight on the front lines, and that's when Barak, who's been listening in, steps in. He tells Takumi he's gonna help with that. Takumi insists he ain't planning on becoming an adventurer, but Barak don't care. He's dead set on training him, and next thing we see, he's tossing Takumi around like a beanbag. While he's getting smacked around, Barak tells him to come up with a party name. Takumi starts throwing out terrible suggestions like Anime Scar, which pisses Barak off even more, and he keeps launching him everywhere. Barak tells him to pick something that actually represents them. Watching this, Reva starts questioning if being an alchemist is supposed to be this brutal. Later, Maria's patching Takumi up, and he asks the others if they've got any good name ideas. He complains that Barak keeps throwing him every time he rejects one. They suggest a few names, but they're just as bad as his. Sophia stays quiet the whole time, and it turns out she's furious at the guild master for beating Takumi up so bad. She's ready to march down there and make him pay. Takumi stops her, saying Barak's just training him, and surprisingly, the beating actually helped him level up some of his skills. Hearing that, Sophia backs off, but Takumi knows this ain't over. Until he picks a party name, Barak's gonna keep making him suffer. Scene shifts to the Empire of Sidonia 10 months later. Yamato is in the middle of a fight with the captain of the guards. He's absolutely overpowering him. Akira, watching from the side, shakes his head, thinking the guy is nothing but a brute who relies on pure strength. Akira scoffs at Yamato, asking if he really thinks he's better than him. Yamato doesn't hesitate, he says he knows he is, because he's a hero. She steps in, reminding him that all three of them are heroes. He's still full of himself, tries to ask her to go somewhere with him, but she shuts him down fast. She's got no interest in hanging out with a loudmouth jackass. Later, she's in her room, lost in thought while reading. The Church of Divine Light preaches human supremacy, that much is clear. But from what she's heard around town, there's another religion, the Church of Creation, which teaches that all races are children of Nolan. She knows this nation is completely under the Church of Divine Light's influence, the same church that summoned them here. That can't be a coincidence. They were told they're here for world peace, but she's starting to question what the church really wants from them. Scene cuts to Takumi handing Reva a ring and a staff, explaining that they'll help her activate spells more efficiently. She's excited, saying they'll be a huge help when they head out adventuring again. Maple, standing nearby, crosses her arms, clearly jealous that only Reva is getting new gear. Takumi laughs, then pulls out a set of knives, showing them to her. He tells her they won't get in her way when she's manipulating threads, and he even reveals that Reva helped make them for her. That flips her mood instantly. She lights up, thanking them both. Later, Takumi's back to getting tossed around by Barak. Every time he spits out a new party name, Barak shuts it down and launches him across the training field. Takumi's suffering continues. He knows if this keeps up, Sophia's gonna snap, but when he glances her way, she's not mad. Instead, she's coaching him calmly, pointing out what he's doing wrong and how to improve. By the time training wraps up, Hans approaches, asking if he's up for an escort mission. He explains that it'll help them build their rank. Takumi doesn't mind, asking how long it'll take, Barak estimates 4 days, and Hans adds that the request came from the Papik Trading Company. Takumi raises an eyebrow. Wasn't this the kind of job Lion's Fang usually handled? Hans explains that they're out on another mission. Takumi realizes they're just the backup, hesitates for a second, thinking about whether or not to take it, but the girls insist. Then, without much choice, he accepts on the spot. As they head out, Hans shakes his head, hoping they'll finally have a party name by the time they return. Then we see Takumi and the others escorting Thomas along with some of Papik's goods. Thomas feels good knowing they've got his back. Takumi doesn't mind, just hoping they won't run into any monsters. Thomas mentions that besides the toilet, he's delivering a bunch of other devices this time, and the company's president also asked them to get some milk. Takumi's caught off guard since they have milk here. Thomas nods, adding that Kilbuse is also known for something else, a daily product people really love. He remembers it's cheese. That surprises Takumi again. They keep moving and run into 2 monster groups about to fight over territory. Camellia takes them all out with 1 hit. Thomas figures the monsters will stay away after a show of power like that. They make it to Kilbuse and later see Takumi and the crew having cream stew. They enjoy it, though Takumi thinks there's a lot that could be better, but the taste hits him with nostalgia. He tells everyone they need to grab some cheese and milk before leaving. Sophia decides to check out the market in the evening. At night, they sit down with bread and cheese. It's so good that Reva wants to bring some home for her mom and little brother. Takumi leans back, thinking how it's only been a few months since he came to this world, but it feels like years. He knows there's no going back to his old life, and for a moment, he misses it. The milk and cheese must be messing with his head, reminding him of home. He turns to Sophia and asks if they have rice in this world. She says there's grain in the kingdom of Salmander, but not in Bolton. Maria says they were selling some in the capital, and Takumi feels a bit disappointed. He didn't grab any while he had the chance. He turns to Sophia, asking if she ever misses her homeland or its food. She shakes her head, saying she enjoys the present more than looking back on where she came from. She talks about spending over 50 years trapped under a curse, but forming a contract with him let her start a new life. It's like he gave wings to a caged bird. She says she's only looking ahead now, not back, and the others agree with her. That sparks an idea in Takumi's mind, and he announces their party's name, Wings of Nolan. He explains that they've all given each other wings, and that's why they keep moving forward. It fits them perfectly. Everyone likes the name, and 2 nights later, they return to Bolton. As they step into their mansion, Takumi picks up on something in the air, paralyzing poison. Before they can react, strange-looking men grab his friends. One of them rushes Takumi with a knife, but Maple moves fast, disarming him. Takumi takes him down while Maple handles the other one. After that, he heals his friends, and Sophia apologizes for not protecting him. He doesn't hold it against her. Maria asks why he wasn't paralyzed. He tells them both he and Maple have resistance to poison and paralysis, though he's feeling a little numb. Maple asks what they should do about the people outside, then steps aside to reveal a whole group of captured assailants. She explains that she found them sneaking around while she was taking Camellia to her stable. Figuring there'd be more inside, she hid in the pocket dimension and waited. Sophia thinks this attack wasn't random. She suggests reaching out to the guild for help. Takumi nods and tells her to bring Barak from the guild. Later, a carriage takes the attackers away, and Barak tells Takumi he should report this to the Lord. This kind of trouble isn't something to ignore. The next day, Takumi pulls up to meet Godwin, who breaks it down for him. Those assassins from last night weren't just some random thugs. They were from the Divine Light Squadron, a bunch of fanatics so extreme, even the Holy Sidonia Empire thinks they're unhinged. These people don't wait for orders. They take out anyone they believe is messing with the Church of Divine Light's teachings. That hits Takumi hard, was hoping they were just some desperate thieves, but these were real assassins. Godwin doesn't even hesitate, he knows exactly why they came after Takumi. It's all about those magic toilets. Before Takumi came along, the priests were the only ones who could purify toilets with holy magic, making stacks of money off the process. Now, thanks to Takumi's invention, their golden ticket is gone, and they want revenge. Takumi thinks about going off the grid for a while, but Godwin and his crew shut that idea down quick. They tell him he's safer under their watch, where they can protect him properly. The guildmaster brings up another issue, Takumi's safety while adventuring. Takumi figures he'll take a break, but the guildmaster won't hear it. His party is one of the top 5 in the city. There's no way he's letting them sit this one out. Sophia steps up, promising Takumi she'll protect him no matter what. Between her and the guildmaster, he gives in and agrees to keep working. Later on, Takumi rolls up to the Adventurers Guild to register his party name, Wings of Nolan. The receptionist takes one look at it and calls it flashy. Then he drops another bombshell. Word's already spreading about assassins being sent after Takumi, and a lot of people think there's a big bounty on his head. That night, Takumi fills the girls in on what he heard, worried that bounty hunters might start showing up soon. It eats at him, knowing he's putting them in danger, but they don't flinch. They tell him straight up they'll protect him with everything they've got. That gives Takumi some relief, but he doesn't want them or the knights wasting all their time guarding him. He needs a better solution. That's when the idea hits him. He'll set up a magic barrier around the house, keeping out anyone who isn't registered with it. To make that happen, he needs a magic device, and he tells Reva he'll need her help building it. But that's just one problem solved. He knows they'll still be out in the field, facing whatever dangers come their way. Sophia throws out an idea: they need a tank in the party. But before Takumi can even think about it, all the girls shut it down quick. No guys allowed. They want his harem growing, not the party filling up with some random dude. Takumi rolls with it, but he's got no clue where to find a female tank or attacker. Sophia suggests hitting up the goth slave trader Mommy, saying that's the best place to start. After that, the girls head to bed while Takumi stays up, working on the magic circles for his safety device. By morning, he's getting ready to start with Reva's help when Sophia steps up, wanting in on the action too. He puts both of them on engraving alchemy circles into metal plates while he sprinkles pixie dust over them. Right then, they spot Maple riding Camellia, charging at huge silk dolls, treating them like enemy golems. Reva mentions that golems fall under alchemy. Takumi already knows that, but their cores are crazy complex, so he hasn't tried making one yet. Reva suggests that a golem would be the perfect tank for their party. Takumi agrees, but knows he doesn't have the skills to pull it off. He focuses back on the barrier device, and as soon as he links everything together, his mana manipulation skill maxes out and evolves into spell control. That flips a switch in his mind. If he levels up spell control, he might just be able to make golems after all. At the same time, over in Sidonia, the Emperor finds out the Divine Light Squadron got captured before they could even take themselves out. That complicates things. His daughter Elizabeth steps in, telling him they've got bigger plans to focus on instead of wasting time on one guy. The court mage reports that they've set up an ancient magic circle to summon heroes, but it'll take a couple of months to gather enough magic power to make it happen. Back with Takumi, he starts experimenting with alchemy to create a golem's core, but he's still not there skill-wise. Maple, watching him struggle, throws out a wild idea: taming a golem instead of making one. That thought sticks. Takumi runs straight to Sophia, asking where they can find golems. She breaks it down for him. Stray stone golems can be found in ancient ruins, and iron golems show up in dungeons. That catches him off guard. He didn't even know dungeons were a thing here. If they're gonna get a golem, he wants an iron one. Sophia warns him that heading into a dungeon without a proper tank or attacker is reckless. But Takumi isn't trying to wait around. He takes his chances, leading his party straight into the dungeon. Before they even reach the dungeon, they run into a giant stray stone golem. Sophia tells Takumi that if they want to take it down, they have to destroy its control core. But Takumi isn't trying to do that. That core is exactly what he needs. The golem suddenly locks onto them, turns around, and both Takumi and Sophia hit the ground to dodge. Its eyes light up, and Sophia warns him that fighting this thing is too risky. Takumi isn't backing down. If they can take it, they'll have a solid tank for their party. Without hesitation, he jumps down to face the golem, and the girls have no choice but to back him up. The golem starts moving toward him while the girls spread out, ready to attack. But then something strange happens. Takumi feels a connection with it. He tells the girls to hold their fire as he moves closer. After a moment, it clicks. The golem was programmed to guard ruins tied to Lady Nolan, and now it's reacting to her blessings on him. Takumi decides to try taming it, and to everyone's shock, it works instantly. Maple gets hyped, excited that she's getting another junior. She pushes Takumi to name it, so he goes with Titan. Turns out this golem is over 23,000 years old. It tries to talk, but nobody can understand what it's saying. Takumi figures he could give it a voice box, but taking a massive golem back to the city would cause a full-blown panic. He mentions storing it in his pocket dimension, but before he can act, the golem suddenly sheds all its weight and shrinks into a mini version of itself. Back home, Takumi starts designing a new body for Titan, but before jumping into production, he calls an important meeting with his slaves. He lays it out straight: people are after his life, and he doesn't want to put them in danger. Because of that, he's ready to dissolve their contracts and let them go home. The girls are stunned, refuse to leave him behind while he's being targeted. But Takumi tells them he's got Titan and his 2 pets watching his back. Takumi promises to pay them well so they won't end up as someone else's slaves after him, but the girls aren't buying it. One minute, Maria has her spear pointed at him, saying if he wants to cancel their contract, he's gotta get through her. She goes off on him for even thinking about ditching them in these rough times, and before long, both of them are breaking down emotionally. Sophia steps in to comfort a tearful Maria and tells Takumi she gets his worry about them. But he really hurt their feelings by telling them to leave him alone when times are tough. Takumi starts remembering how every girl had his back, and he apologizes for dumping his emotions on them while ignoring what they felt. He then asks if they'll stick by his side and take on his enemies together, and the girls are more than ready. A few days later, Takumi finishes building a new body for Titan out of adamantite and mithril, packed with weapons and defenses, and even capable of talking. And that's not all. Takumi even fulfills his childhood dream of being a Power Ranger by creating a giant version of Titan that he can climb into and control as if it were his own body. While Takumi sheds tears over the success of his hard work, Nolan, who's been keeping an eye on him, thinks he might have gone too far with that golem. When her assistant brings her bad news about Supreme being Anat, worshipped by the Sidonia Empire, it changes everything. There never was a Supreme being named Anat, but thanks to the Church of Divine Light's intense devotion, she's slowly coming into being as an evil spirit. Nolan always had a hunch something like this would happen, and she knows it's gonna spark a massive war on Earth. One that Sidonia and its heroes will definitely start. But she can't step in directly, which is why she hooked Takumi up with a new body and strong blessings so he can save the world. A year back near Bolton, in a modest development settlement, a beast woman named Manny was mourning at a grave until an acquaintance urged her to leave. Hiding in one of the train's cars, Manny overheard folks saying that this village was the only refuge left after the economy tanked thanks to nobles doing whatever they pleased until chaos took over. When things hit rock bottom, those nobles decimated the village and bolted to nearby lands, leaving the people with a deep hatred for all nobles. One woman even noted that Manny's husband toiled until he fell ill without proper care, effectively blaming the nobles for his passing. 12 months after that tragedy, Godwin discovered that Count Rockford had welcomed the displaced villagers with open arms. His two subordinates were livid over the nobles' pettiness, but Godwin stressed that they couldn't forsake those who'd lost everything, especially now that Rockford had sent a request to resettle the refugees. With 1,000 people in need of a new home, it was clear that a vast amount of land was required, and there was only one suitable spot. The catch was that this territory was infamous for its roaming monsters, and clearing them out would be a tall order. But they had no choice other than summoning the one person who could handle it. Shifting gears, Takumi reckoned it was a smart move for the Wings of Nolan to tackle a dungeon challenge. Upon reaching the labyrinth's entrance, Takumi mused that it had been ages since he'd wanted to explore such a place. Out of the many dungeons available, they settled on one ranked as the second toughest, the Beast King Forest, a mysterious underground realm featuring vast skies and woods despite its hidden location. Inside, even though they were outnumbered, the monsters proved far stronger than those found outside. Fortunately, Maple was a major asset in picking up enemy movements, giving the crew a chance to launch surprise attacks and defend effectively. Furthermore, thanks to Titan absorbing the brunt of the attacks, the Wings of Nolan were able to defeat the bosses on each floor one after the other and scoop up the treasures they dropped. After a long day of exploring, the crew finally reaches the final floor, and everyone's hyped about how far they've come without taking much damage. Takumi credits their good fortune to dodging traps. No sooner had he finished speaking than he stepped on a hidden panel that sent a massive iron ball rolling after them. They sprinted hard and managed to escape the threat. Once safe, Maple wonders why Titan didn't smash the iron ball, and Takumi explains that Titan followed his order to retreat without hesitation. In the midst of their discussion, one of the available exits mysteriously seals off, forcing the group to take the only remaining route. Takumi senses that they're being funneled into a grim spot. At that moment, an S-rank Earth dragon slithers out of the shadows, leaving Takumi wishing he had brought the Great Titan along to handle the creature. The ensuing battle heavily favors the dragon, as the Wings of Nolan struggle to keep pace with the beast's relentless assault, keeping them on the defensive. Seizing a brief window of opportunity, Takumi commands Titan and Maple to grab the dragon's tail to prevent it from being used against them. Titan complies while Maple ensnares the tail with a binding web. Sophia then drives her spear into the creature's limb, followed by Takumi unleashing his wind cut, Reva launching a barrage of fire, and Maria striking with her fire lance. At his cue, Titan summons the Light of Judgment, and the combined assault makes Reva think the dragon is finished. Though Takumi knows that wasn't enough. The winged beast then rises from the ashes and spits fire at Titan, dealing devastating damage. Amid the chaos, Sophia spots the enemy's vulnerable flank, so Takumi calls on Camellia to charge in with a powerful headbutt. Moving in, Takumi charges his sword with electrical magic and hurls it at the dragon, which vaporizes instantly, sealing the victory for the Wings of Nolan and claiming the final treasure along with the dungeon itself. To cap it off, Camellia unexpectedly evolves, growing in size. Scooping up a fragment of the dragon from the ground, Takumi envisions crafting some truly intriguing creations with the material. Right after returning from the dungeon, Takumi gets called in by Godwin. During the meeting, Godwin brings up a stretch of untamed land in the southern part of his territory, a wild zone where no one lives because dangerous monsters roam free. He explains that, in the past, the Kingdom of Triaria tried to invade this area, but not only did they lose, their kingdom suffered a steep decline afterward. Takumi mentions he's heard the region is packed with untapped adamantite and mithril, and Godwin sees this as the perfect opening to pitch a project. He suggests that Takumi set up a development settlement on the land. After all, Godwin recalls how Takumi quickly built a sturdy wall around Board Village, proving he's more than up for the task. Godwin's aide adds that about 105 miles south of Bolton, there's a river and a spring, a promising spot for a settlement since the water source is a big plus and it's far enough from the monsters. Sophia, worried about her boss's current predicament with the Divine Light Squadron on his tail, notes the timing is rough. Godwin apologizes for the delicate timing, but insists there's a solid reason to rush this project. A year ago, a settlement had to be abandoned when corrupt nobles halted its development, leaving residents homeless and turning them into refugees now being cared for in Bolton and Rockford. The plan is to build new homes for them as quickly as possible. Takumi takes on the mission without hesitation. He can't stand by and let people be left homeless, especially since he himself was in that situation a year ago. The people of Board Village had always welcomed him with open arms, and he feels the same duty now. Later on the mission, Takumi turned down an offer for a nightly escort. So Nolan's wings headed solo to the development area, a place blessed with abundant water and a favorable environment. The crew erected walls using earth magic, dug deep moats around the fortress, and then set up internal roads, aqueducts, and timber groves while clearing out nearby monsters. After making solid progress, Takumi asked Sophia to head back to Bolton to round up the new settlers for this region. Sophia arrives and relays the news, and Godwin can hardly believe the settlement is fully prepared to take in inhabitants after only 10 days of construction. The convoy carrying the refugees sets out, and folks talk among themselves about being sent to the southern border, likely to that undeveloped land crawling with monsters, where they are destined to perish so as not to burden the nobles any longer. From what they gather, the settlement's operations are in the hands of a man dispatched from Bolton, undoubtedly another wealthy guy who treats the poor like disposable pawns. At the end of the journey, the warriors escorting the convoy are stunned by the massive wall they encounter at the new settlement, and even more so when they see impeccably built houses and a castle at the center of the area. Meeting with the escort officer, Takumi explains that he was busy preparing the soil for agriculture, and that the wall is robust enough to repel invaders unless one happens to be a dragon. The officer inquires about the castle, and Takumi clarifies that it is meant to house the settlement's governors, as there are already plenty of homes for everyone. Besides, there's a barracks for the knights, and the sewage is handled with septic tanks and magical devices. In disbelief, the officer can't imagine that this kid managed to develop all of this in just over a week and accuses him of using magic to do it, a claim that Takumi does not deny. Observing their new city, a few refugees wonder if they will truly be able to settle there, while Sophia approaches Manny to ask why she is alone in her new home. Manny explains that her husband died back in their old village, and Sophia remarks that it must be tough running a farm on your own, expressing interest in offering her a different kind of work. With no response from Manny, Sophia promises to consult her master about it. Manny is taken aback to learn that this person has a master, and the servant explains that he was responsible for building the village and, given how busy everyone is right now, might need someone to cook or handle similar tasks. With that, Sophia heads off to speak with Takumi, assuring her that she will return for Manny later. A few hours later, Takumi presents Manny with a job offer. She'd handle his needs in return for a salary to be worked out later. At that moment, memories flood back to Manny of overheard chatter in the train, how to never trust the nobles again, and how her husband lost his life to the rich's greed. With those thoughts weighing on her, Manny turns down the offer, scared that history might repeat itself and lead her into more heartbreak after leaving her old village. In the end, she admits she just can't trust Takumi. Maria chimes in, insisting Takumi isn't what Manny believes him to be, but Takumi himself decides to put that proposal on hold for now. After the meeting, feeling that her words to that noble will bring her nothing but trouble, Manny figures she can't stick around. She's sure persecution, or worse, is coming her way. Perhaps she was brutally honest out of a deep sense of justice, or maybe she was venting the pain inflicted by other nobles, or simply releasing years of pent-up frustration. Lost in these thoughts, she's ambushed while heading toward the forest. Instantly, Maple dashes off to alert his master that a swarm of monsters is storming the area. Takumi quickly meets up with Dorn, the escort officer, and orders that all bridges be raised and every resident secured. According to him, no creature can breach the wall. Nolan's wings will handle any foes lingering outside. At the same time, Manny scrambles desperately for shelter within the wall, only to find she's too late to see the bridge pulled up. Residents later tell Maria that they couldn't locate her, though someone did spot her heading out via the south bridge. Worried for her safety, Takumi gathers his team, and they all ride out on the Great Titan. Soon enough, Manny finds herself face to face with two monstrous wolves. For a moment, she wonders why she's even there, realizing all too late that she might have been born to meet her end in this very place. Just as the wolves are about to strike, Takumi appears in a flash, rescuing her and dispatching the beasts with his halberd. Afterward, Manny reports that many other monsters are roaming free, but Takumi isn't too concerned that this will turn into a major problem. At that moment, the rest of the team arrives, reporting that all remaining enemies have been eliminated. Takumi teases Manny, proclaiming they truly are the best crew around. Listening to him, she notices his injury and promptly wraps his wound while apologizing for her earlier words. Takumi simply shows his relief that she is unharmed, determined never to let any villager get hurt because he wants a peaceful life for everyone. In that instant, Manny realizes that this young man is nothing like the oppressive nobles she once knew. He comes off as kind and magnificent. Recognizing that turning back is no longer an option, she admits her desire to serve Takumi as she had previously offered. Takumi accepts her without hesitation, and the rest of the team welcomes her as their newest comrade. Back in Bolton, Dorn informs Godwin about Takumi's resounding success with the new settlement. Godwin, filled with pride, wonders if this town might be the keystone they have been seeking. Over in the sacred empire of Sidonia, the king receives a letter from the kingdom of Triaria claiming that out of nowhere, a fortress town complete with a sturdy castle has been erected on the undeveloped lands near the kingdom of Barcula. The report adds that the knights stationed there came from Bolton and hints that the alchemist was involved, an act that appears to be an indirect test by Sidonia. Elizabeth orders that the kingdom of Barcula can no longer be allowed to dominate, insisting that Sidonia must rule the continent alone. The king inquires about her meaning, and she explains that the time for a counterstrike has arrived. Returning to Takumi, he inspects a road, considering its potential as a trade route until Nanny arrives with the lunchboxes the master had ordered. Out of nowhere, a powerful surge bursts from within a rock, channeling out through a hole and blasting across the continent with overwhelming force that blinds and terrifies the wings of Nolan far away. Maple remarks that he detected a disturbing flow of mana, while Sophia voices her unease. In that instant, Takumi recalls that Nolan tampered with time when summoning him to this world, sending the alchemist back a year before the heroes were called, and notes that it has now been exactly 1 year since his arrival, meaning they have finally reached their destination. Amid all this, Akira, Yamato, and Akane materialize in the enigmatic hall of Sidonia and are greeted by Elizabeth. 3 months after the heroes were summoned and had all reached a rank, Lady Nolan predicted that Sidonia would soon make its move. As anticipated, Elizabeth gathered the heroes for an important announcement. She declared that the moment had finally arrived to introduce the world to its new champions, and that she would be taking them across the continent to showcase their power. While Akira and Yamato were visibly excited at the prospect of venturing out and being celebrated as heroes, Akane, on the other hand, appeared less enthusiastic. Still, she joined in with the group and feigned excitement so that neither Elizabeth nor the king would suspect her true reservations. On Takumi's side of things, the village he built, now called Wedgefort, was thriving as merchants and craftsmen began to settle in and launch their businesses. Out in the forest beyond the village, Sophia was busy slaying monsters. After slicing one creature in half, Maple called her over to examine her catch. Maple proudly showed Sophia the beast she'd captured, but Sophia immediately recognized it as a bush lizard. Her concern grew as she noted that the local monsters seemed to be getting stronger. She promptly reported her observation to the others. Although many offered to help with the extermination efforts, Sophia insisted she could manage on her own. Her worry stemmed solely from the sudden increase in the monster's strength, something she found very odd. She suspected that these creatures were being forced out of their natural habitats for an unknown reason. While she couldn't prove it, she believed that the mana fluctuations they experienced 3 months ago might be influencing the monsters as well. After all, if the disturbance was powerful enough to catch their attention, it must be affecting the local fauna. Takumi, recalling Lady Nolan's words about the heroes summoning, knew he needed to stay vigilant, even if he wasn't sure what to expect next. Later in the night, the night captain informed Takumi that Barak was calling him back on a quest, so Takumi agreed to return soon. Before departing, he inquired of the knight if anything noteworthy had happened in Bolton during his absence. The knight reported that everything remained the same, although a rumor was circulating that 3 new heroes had appeared in the Empire of Sidonia. After the news spread, the group convened to discuss what it meant for heroes to be summoned in Sidonia. Since none of them knew the real story behind the heroes' arrival, Maria figured that Lady Nolan must have called them over to set right Sidonia's wicked ways. Takumi, however, wasn't buying it. He knew Sidonia was still as corrupt as ever, the same rotten place that once tried to kill him, and he could only hope that the summoned heroes would be decent individuals. That hope quickly deflated when it turned out that Akira and Yamato had earned a reputation as outright scumbags. As they were about to board their carriage, Yamato sneered, asking if they were seriously going to take that filthy demi-human along. Lulu attempted an apology for offending him, but Yamato snapped at her for even daring to speak. Akane jumped in to defend Lulu, insisting that she was her personal attendant and deserved respect. Then, Akira remarked that demi-humans were nothing more than slaves, but eventually, he grudgingly allowed her to ride with them. Just as the heroes were preparing to leave, Elizabeth and the king began a prayer at Anat, beseeching her aid so that the heroes could vanquish their enemies. And even if Anat had once seemed like a myth, she now clearly made her presence known. Once Takumi and his crew returned to Bolton, they sought out Hans for any updates on the summoned heroes in Sidonia. Hans mentioned that the heroes consisted of 2 boys and a girl, all sporting black hair, leading Takumi to suspect they might be Japanese, just like him. Hans also noted that the heroes were supposedly on an expedition to visit every church in Barcula, though that was just a cover, with their real aim likely being to take down the churches of Nolan. Hans went on to say that Papek had requested Takumi's party to escort him to the royal capital. Since it was a request from Papek himself, Takumi decided to accept. While preparations for the escort mission were underway, Manny asked if she could join the team. Takumi hesitated, explaining that escort missions were dangerous, and that Manny, lacking any serious combat abilities, might end up getting hurt. Although Manny understood his concern, she admitted that staying in the mansion alone, while everyone else was out on a mission, would leave her feeling very isolated. Sophia and Maria sympathize with Manny's feelings, and Manny begs Takumi to reconsider his decision. She insists that her ability with earth magic makes her more than just a burden in battle, and not to mention, her adorable eyes make it hard for Takumi and Scar to pass her by. Eventually, Takumi agrees to let her tag along on the escort mission, but only if she stays close to either Maria or Reva. Manny is overjoyed that Takumi is willing to take her on board, though she still needs to be officially registered as an adventurer later. At the same time, as the heroes make their way toward Barkula, Yamato and Akira grow increasingly frustrated by every jolt and bump in the unsuspended carriage. Akira mentions he heard about a carriage with proper suspension available in Barkula, and he's keen to get one. On top of that, he's also heard there's a bounty of elves there. He suggests to Yamato that they could scoop up a few to bring home for their own amusement. Yamato agrees it sounds like a fun idea, but the Knight Captain reminds them that Barkula has strict laws against exporting slaves. However, Akira and Yamato care little about rules after all. They're top-tier adventurers well beyond level 30, convinced that no one on the continent can match their combat prowess. Their boastful chatter makes Akane extremely uneasy, and she feels compelled to act before the pair can wreak any serious havoc. At the same time, as they approach the royal capital of Barkula, several days later Takumi wraps up his escort mission. At the capital, a receptionist informs him that he, Sophia, and Maria are being promoted to a rank, while Reva is bumped up to D rank. She asks for their guild cards to process the upgrades when suddenly a commotion erupts at the back of the guild hall as the heroes arrive, causing quite a scene. Akira demands that everyone clear the way so he can get to the front, and when one of the guild patrons dares to speak to him, he nonchalantly gut punches the guy. As if that weren't enough, Akira and Yamato then spot Takumi accompanied by his stunning female companions, and they dismiss him as just another inferior adventurer. Akira orders Takumi to hand over the women immediately. Of course Takumi refuses, growing increasingly irritated by their insolence but still eager to avoid conflict. He tells them to back off, yet Akira's arrogance gets the better of him, and he draws his sword, charging at Takumi with deadly intent. Takumi smoothly dodges the incoming strike while channeling his alchemy to shatter Akira's sword, and when Yamato lunges at him next, Takumi simply flips him onto the ground like a discarded sack. Akane watches in amazement as he overpowers both of them with ease, while Akira is left fuming over the loss, especially since his prized sword is now nothing more than scrap. He spits out a promise of retribution, vowing that Takumi will regret crossing him. Takumi fires back, telling Akira that he's hardly in a position to make threats. Drawing his sword in the guild is a grave offense that will land him in serious trouble. Though Akira begrudgingly accepts that Takumi has a point, he still nurses his grudge and swears that revenge will come one day. Once the confrontation settles and the troublemakers leave, Akane rushes up to Takumi, apologizing for her fellow hero's unruly behavior. Takumi reassures her that there's no need for an apology, as she's done nothing wrong. Then, introducing herself more fully, Akane confides that her gut tells her Takumi might be exactly the person she's been searching for. Before she can elaborate further, Lulu hurries over to inform Akane that it's time to move on. Sensing that Akane has more to say, Takumi leans in and promises to wait for her at the lakeside hotel later that night. Later that night, Takumi recounts his clash with the so-called heroes to the girls, dismissing the ruffians as hardly deserving of the title. However, he mentions that the woman from their group struck him as genuinely decent, which is why he invited her to meet him at the hotel. Now, reflecting on the situation, he worries that it might not have been the best idea, wondering how Akane will manage to slip away from her Sidonia escorts unnoticed. Sure enough, Akane's cover is blown, and she finds herself on the run from Sidonia guards, with Lulu in tow, all in a bid to reach Takumi. As the guards start to close in, Sophia suddenly appears, swiftly knocking out one guard while Maple hauls the other away. Sophia then escorts Akane to the hotel where she finally meets up with Takumi. With no one tailing them for the moment, Akane gets straight to the point by asking Takumi if he happens to be Japanese. Takumi tries to dodge the question. At first, he can't risk any details leaking to Sidonia, but Akane vows she won't breathe a word. Trusting her sincerity, Takumi admits that he is indeed Japanese and reveals that his presence here is linked to the hero's summoning. His party members exchange puzzled looks. This is the first time they've heard him speak so openly about such matters. Realizing the secret can no longer be kept, Takumi insists everyone promise to hold the truth close. Once they all agree, he launches into the full story of everything that happened before he was pulled into this world. He expected disbelief, but to his surprise, the girls readily accept that he's from the same world as the heroes and is acting on behalf of Lady Nolan. From Takumi's account, it becomes clear that Sidonia is the true villain, and the existence of those fake heroes only complicates matters further. Akane then asks if Takumi believes Sidonia intends to wage war against the other nations. While that remains a possibility, he points out that Akira and Yamato aren't nearly strong enough to start a war on their own. It's more likely that Sidonia plans to use the heroes to stir up public sentiment and ignite conflict. Even if a full-blown war doesn't break out, spreading the influence of the Church of Divine Light would still be deeply problematic. Akane apologizes for dragging Takumi into this mess, but he assures her it isn't her fault. They were all summoned here against their will by Sidonia's machinations. Shifting the conversation, Takumi wonders aloud about Akira and Yamato. Given that they're also from Japan, he finds it hard to believe they were such scumbags before arriving here. He asks Akane why their behavior has changed so drastically. Akane admits she's not entirely sure what triggered the shift, though she recalls that both Akira and Yamato were kind-hearted before their training in Sidonia. Their personalities transformed dramatically after arriving here. Finding this odd, Takumi inquires whether they were ever fed anything unusual. Akane shrugs. She'd never trusted Sidonia from the start. In fact, she always cast purification magic on her food before eating it. Akira and Yamato weren't as proficient with light magic, so there's a chance they might have been drugged and brainwashed at some point. Realizing this possibility, Akane falls to her knees before Takumi, pleading for him to rescue her and Lulu. She feels she can't possibly return to Sidonia. Takumi gently tells her to stop. She doesn't need to beg for his help. After all, he wouldn't dream of abandoning a fellow Japanese girl, so he suggests they head back to his mansion in Bolton for now. After a swift carriage ride, the group arrives back in Bolton. To lift Akane's spirits, Maria cooks up a batch of creamy mushroom and vegetable soup. Akane is amazed. She hasn't enjoyed a dish like this in ages, and the simple pleasure moves her to tears. At the same time, over at Wedgefort, a guard patrolling the wall notices unusual activity in the forest. Upon closer inspection, he realizes it's a stampede of monsters and immediately rushes off to sound the alarm. Back at Takumi's mansion, as the night settles in, Akane and Lulu have already retired for the evening, while Takumi works alongside Reva in his workshop. He mentions that he'll discuss Akane and Lulu's situation with the king later, but for now, they are safe under his roof. Before the night is over, Takumi gathers all the girls around because he has something important to announce. Once they're assembled, he reveals that he's canceling everyone's slave contracts effective immediately. The girls are initially heartbroken, fearing Takumi is about to abandon them again. But Takumi quickly reassures them that he meant the opposite. With greater dangers looming ahead, he needs to know that they'll stand by his side as equals, not as bonded servants, but as part of a true family. After voiding the contracts, Takumi returns to his workbench and finishes crafting 2 legendary swords he'd been laboring on. However, before he can test the new blades, a notice from the guild arrives. It warns of an emergency in Wedgefort, and as Takumi reads through the details, his heart sinks at the dire situation it describes. Takumi and his girls head straight to the guild, where the Lion Fang party is already waiting along with the guildmaster. Takumi asks the guildmaster about the situation in his new town and learns that a stampede of monsters is rushing toward it. The Knight Captain has requested the guild send their best adventurers to help, but most high-ranking parties are currently on other quests. Takumi feels a bit worried about that. The receptionist then explains that the 3 parties being sent for the mission are stronger than 100 other teams. As soon as he hears there will be 3 parties real, the leader of Lion Fang starts to panic because he knows who the third party will be, and he is not looking forward to dealing with them. Suddenly, the third party Crimson arrives, and their leader, Merylda, introduces all the members of her all-girls group. She greets Takumi's party and Lion Fang while purposefully ignoring Real to rile him up. The guildmaster orders everyone to head to the new town and handle the situation until the night order arrives, and they immediately leave in Takumi's carriage. He leaves Akane and Lulu back at the mansion and keeps Titan there to guard them. Once inside the carriage, Takumi hands Sophia the holy sword he just created and explains that this time he made 2 unique swords. Sophia takes the one that deals physical damage, while Takumi plans to use the one that inflicts mental damage even with the slightest scratch on the opponents. Soon the carriage reaches the outskirts of the new town, and Takumi is confident they have time because no monster should be able to get over the tall wall so easily. To his shock, however, he sees hundreds of winged monsters almost ready to cross the wall, while even the ground-based ones have started climbing up. Realizing there is no time to waste, Takumi and the others immediately begin attacking the monsters. They start slaughtering the creatures, reducing the pressure on the guards who open the gates for them. Once inside the city, the 3 parties split up to clear out the monsters from within the walls. Takumi and his girls fight relentlessly until morning, clearing all the monsters on their side and allowing the villagers to finally come out of their homes. The villagers express their gratitude to Takumi for saving them, and he assigns Reva and Manny to tend to the wounded, while taking the rest of his team to back up the other parties. He soon reaches the far side of town and finds the adventurers watching the forest from atop the wall, all ready for what comes next. Some of the crew point out that the monsters are all pulling back into the forest at once, which seems fishy since these creatures aren't smart enough to coordinate like that. They mention that during the night, the monsters acted clever too, attacking while everyone was resting and then scattering when they sensed they were losing. Takumi figures there's someone calling the shots, but even the veteran adventurers find that hard to swallow. He then throws out a theory that the energy wave from the hero summoning might have triggered some of the monsters to mutate or evolve, an idea that sounds more believable to everyone. Meanwhile, the Emperor of Sidonia hears about the monster stampede targeting the new town in the Barcula Kingdom. He sees it as a golden chance to weaken his enemy, and his daughter Elizabeth suggests they also hit up Barcula's allies so no help can get in on time. The Emperor digs the plan and gives her the go-ahead to send the heroes to attack the neighboring country. Back in town, while everyone is busy healing the injured, Sophia stands watch for monsters. Out of the blue, Reva shows up with her lunch and tells her that Takumi is acting crazy. He's handing out every last healing potion to the wounded, and if this keeps up they won't have any left for themselves when the fight drags on. Sophia tries to talk some sense into him, but Takumi simply says he'll just avoid getting hurt. Sophia isn't impressed by that, yet she knows Takumi cares more about others than himself, so she vows to risk everything to protect him. Soon, Takumi is outlining a plan to keep the villagers safe when Maple alerts him that the monsters have come back. The whole group rushes out to fight, and Takumi lays out their strategy. First hit the monsters with wide-range magic, then charge in for close combat. They blast the monster army with powerful spells and then close in for melee. They easily push the creatures back, and suddenly the monsters start retreating again. Everyone is baffled until they spot a dragon-like beast gobbling up other monsters and growing larger. A two-headed dragon then bursts from the forest to attack, and Takumi realizes this must be the boss pulling the strings. The beast zeroes in on Sophia first. Takumi swoops in to save her from being crushed by the dragon, but Sophia chooses to bait the monster away from him by constantly attacking. The enraged dragon chases after her, and its fire breath knocks her down. Fortunately, the rest of Takumi's girls show up and secure the dragon before they unleash their full power on it. The injured Sophia tosses her sword to Takumi, and by fusing the might of both enchanted blades, he manages to bring the beast down. Sophia then collapses, and Takumi rushes to her side to heal her, grumbling about why she acted so recklessly. She replies simply that all she wanted was to keep him safe. Takumi gets troubled and warns her not to risk her life, and just as he finishes patching her up, others arrive with news that most of the monsters have fled and the remaining ones have been taken care of. Relieved, Takumi suddenly blacks out from overusing his mana. He recovers the next day with his girls gathered around, while Sophia watches their cottage from a distance. After several days of helping rebuild the town, Takumi and his crew head back home. When they arrive, they throw a huge cookout to celebrate their victory. Even though Sophia still feels low about what happened earlier, Takumi barely notices her, so Maria and Manny egg him on to talk to her. He walks over with a plate of meat and tells her he knows she was determined to keep him safe at all costs, but he never wanted to lose her because of that. He urges her to stay safe and continue supporting him as his partner for life, and an emotional Sophia promises to do just that. Soon after, Takumi visits Lord Godwin to get official permission to shelter Akane and Lulu at his place. Lord Godwin grants his request and then informs him that Sidonia's so-called heroes caused a massacre in one of their allied countries. Akane is shocked on hearing this and blames herself for not stopping those jerks. Yet Takumi comforts her by saying it is not her fault. She admits that she should have done more and vows that when the time comes, she will stand up against those heroes and put a stop to them. Later, Takumi meets with Lady Nolan for guidance, asking if she sent him back in time to brace for the threat of the summoned heroes. Lady Nolan does not give him a direct answer, but tells him that everything now rests on his shoulders. Takumi promises that he will protect this world because there are so many things he loves about it, and Lady Nolan is pleased to hear that, wishing he becomes the greatest alchemist ever so that the world remains safe and prospers. That wraps up Season 1, and we hope y'all had a blast with it.